Chapter 2010. Humph! Lin Xian snorted. Black flames rushed out of his body and turned into a black light screen, enveloping him. It resisted the sea of fire around him. Whoosh! This flame was the heavenly demonic flame. It was rolling and fighting against the sea of fire. The two flames collided, making crackling sounds. Obviously, the heavenly demonic flame could not resist at all, because the surrounding flames were more violent and there were more of them. Therefore, the light screen formed by Lin Xian's demonic flame was on the verge of collapse and would break at any time. What a terrifying flame! Lin Xian's eyes flickered. The power of the flames here was beyond Lin Xian's expectation. He did not expect the heavenly demonic flame on his body to be so weak. It was suppressed by the surrounding flames. However, this made him even more excited. The stronger the surrounding flames were, the more powerful they would be after he absorbed them. Therefore, Lin Xian did not hesitate to use his means to absorb and refine the surrounding flames. To be honest, the flames here were very terrifying. Even a mighty figure would not dare to stay here for a long time. Lin Xian was also in trouble. Fortunately, he had the Great Dragon Sword Soul. He used the Great Dragon Sword Soul to release streaks of Dragon Soul Sword Qi. The terrifying sword aura extinguished the surrounding flames, creating a vacuum. That was why Lin Xian was able to cultivate in such a safe and secure place. He did not miss any opportunity to absorb the surrounding flames and fuse them with the heavenly demonic flame. Whoosh! A month passed in the blink of an eye. Lin Xian was still cultivating with his eyes closed. Outside, King Valurium frowned. To be honest, he expected Lin Xian to last for a few days at most before he could not withstand the power of the flames inside. Even a mighty figure could last for 10 days at most. The stronger ones could last for half a month. Any longer, and they would not be able to stay any longer. Now that a month had passed, Lin Xian had not come out. This was beyond his expectations. He even suspected that Lin Xian had been burned inside. Therefore, King Valurium's expression was solemn. He stretched out his hand and formed a seal. Immediately, his gaze became extremely sharp. It pierced through the void and looked inside. Then, he let out a sigh of relief. That was because he discovered that the other party had not been burned to ashes by the flames. Instead, he was still cultivating. This made Glazed Tile heave a sigh of relief. At least the other party was fine. However, he soon revealed a look of shock. That was because the other party was actually able to persist for so long. Even ordinary almighties were unable to do so. How did he do it? Wang. Lin Xian opened his eyes when he felt King Valurium's gaze. He sensed that someone was watching him, so he stopped cultivating and withdrew from his state of cultivation, because he didn't want his secret to be discovered. In the next moment, the surrounding flames gathered and poured into Lin Xian's body. From now on, I'll call you Hellfire. Lin Xian was from the infernal realm. This flame came from the Cerberus, so it was naturally called the infernal flame. At that moment, the flames on his body were still black. However, their might was no longer the same as before. Whoosh! In the next moment, Lin Xian took a step forward. He tore through space and instantly appeared near King Valurium. King Valurium said, "I didn't mean to spy on you. I was just worried about your condition. That's why I did it. Don't worry. If you can complete one task, I'll let you enter the Fire Mountain again." "Thank you, Your Highness. It's about time. I can go complete one task now," Lin Xian said in a low voice. "All right." King Valurium smiled when he heard this. Then, he began to transmit a message to Lin Xian. Lin Xian left the area, even leaving the heart of Valurium Manor. However, Lin Xian did not leave the manor. Instead, he flew towards the east. Iron Cloud Peak was one of the 5 great peaks under the manor. It was the strongest peak. As the strongest peak under the manor, Iron Cloud Peak was not only powerful, but also had some special uses. For example, there was a super transportation formation on Iron Cloud Peak. This super transportation formation was located in a valley under Iron Cloud Peak. This valley was heavily guarded. There were 36 squads silently watching over it. The leader of these 36 squads was an old man. His hair was white, but his eyes were unusually bright. The aura of his cultivation had reached the great perfection of 6 stars. The old man patrolled the vicinity of the valley, constantly observing to ensure that there was no danger. At the same time, he thought to himself, there were still 3 months left. 3 months later, his task of guarding the valley would be completed. At that time, he would no longer be the leader here. He would be transferred back. That way, he would be able to cultivate in peace. He was already at the great perfection of 6 stars. Perhaps he could break through to the great perfection realm after a dozen years of seclusion. But if he could become a great perfection realm expert, everything would be different. Regardless of whether it was his strength or his status, there would be an earth-shattering change. Therefore, becoming a great perfection realm expert was the old man's lifelong goal. While he was thinking, the sound of wind breaking came from afar. Then, a sword light flew towards him like lightning. Someone is coming. The old man frowned, and a sharp light burst out from his eyes. The aura in his body was secretly circulating. His right hand reached into his sleeve and grabbed a black flag. As long as he waved the black flag, he could immediately summon the 36 squads around him to fight against the enemy. However, he did not act rashly because he did not know who was coming. The next moment, he was stunned, because when the sword light disappeared, a young man was standing in the void. He had a handsome face and was wearing a red robe. His black hair was casually tied with a red string. He was about 24 or 25 years old. His expression was very calm. Sensing that there was no murderous intent from the other party, the old man's figure flashed, and he came to the other party and said coldly, "Who are you?" "Lin Xian," the young man said in a deep voice. Then, he stretched out his palm. In his palm, there was a golden token that emitted thousands of rays of golden light. On the token, there was a word, token, written on it. Behind it was a flying dragon bearing its fangs and brandishing its claws. Azure token. Seeing the token, the old man became unusually respectful. He knelt on one knee on the ground. Although he did not know who the young man in front of him was, he was sure of the token. This token belonged to King Valurium. Only the most important people in the prince's residence were qualified to have it. Seeing the token was like seeing King Valurium. That was why the old man was so respectful. Get up," Lin Xian said in a deep voice. "I want to activate the super teleportation. I'll go prepare now." The old man quickly turned around. At the same time, he quickly sent a voice transmission to the surrounding squads to appear and prepare the super teleportation formation. Chapter 2011. 2 hours later, there was a blinding flash of light and a tremendous amount of spirit energy. Then, the light disappeared. Peace returned to the pavilion once more. The change happened so quickly that only Iron Cloud Peak's men noticed. The other peaks didn't notice at all. However, in a pavilion deep within Valurium Manor, King Valurium stood with his hands behind his back. His eyes were like torches as he looked into the distance. Beside him was a handsome young man. He wore purple robes, and his expression was somewhat similar to King Valurium's. He stood next to King Valurium and asked in a low voice, "Father, why did you give him the medallion? If he fails, won't his identity be exposed?" "Don't worry, it's a temporary medallion. It's only enough for him to use the super transportation formation. If he really is killed and the mission fails, the medallion will disappear." King Valurium said faintly, "But I think he has a chance." "Is that so? Is he stronger than those great experts?" The young man in purple didn't quite believe it. However, King Valurium narrowed his eyes. Stars flickered in his pupils. The central continent was incomparably vast. Aside from the Tai dynasty, there were 8 other great dynasties. The Ninely dynasty was one of them. The Ninely dynasty's territory was connected to the Tai dynasty's territory. The borders of the two empires often had conflicts. Overall, however, it was very peaceful. There was a special area near the border between the two kingdoms. They were the Easternly clan. The Ninely clan was divided into 2 branches, East and West. The Ninely dynasty was currently under the control of the Western Ninely clan. Eastern Jiuliu had been pushed to the edge. There was a city here called Lilac City. Not only was the city filled with lilacs, but even the surrounding areas were filled with lilacs. That faint fragrance condensed in the air, making people feel refreshed. Young master, why don't you buy a lilac flower? The buildings in the city were tall and grand. The streets were like a long dragon that stretched as far as the eye could see. People came and went in an endless stream. It was a very prosperous city. On the side of the road, a little girl held a lilac flower and asked a passerby, "Are you an idiot? There are lilacs everywhere in this lilac city. Is there still a need to buy them?" One of them sneered disdainfully and shot a glance at the little girl on the roadside. "No, those lilacs are all golden. My lilacs are white," the little girl said weakly, but she was ignored. However, the little girl did not give up and continued to ask by the roadside. Soon, she saw a handsome young man in a red robe walking over. She immediately ran over. "Brother, brother, buy a lilac. My lilac is white. Which family's little girl is this? How dare she deceive people here? No one will buy it. How can there be white lilacs? She's obviously a liar. It's dyed with dye." The passers-by shook their heads and sneered. However, the red-robed youth stopped in his tracks. This red-robed youth was none other than Lin Xian. He'd used a super transportation formation from Valurium Palace to Ninely Dynasty. Now, he'd come to Lilac City according to his mission. Lin Xian lowered his head to look at the thin little girl and said, "All right, I want one." "How much?" "One supreme grade subdivine crystal," the little girl said weakly. The surrounding people were even more shocked when they heard this. Damn, is this little girl crazy? She dares to ask for a supreme grade subdivine crystal? It's just a broken flower. Is it worth that much? However, Su Chun took out a supreme grade subdivine crystal and handed it over. Then, he took a white lilac from the little girl's hand. "Brother, this lilac will protect you." "Good girl." Lin Xian rubbed the little girl's head and asked, "Little girl, do you know where Ninely Tower is?" "There." The little girl pointed into the distance. Then, she skipped away with a piece of substandard divine crystal in her hand. Soon, she disappeared into the crowd. The surrounding people were in an uproar. They looked at Lin Xian and discussed among themselves. Is this kid an idiot? He actually used a supreme grade subdivine crystal to buy a broken flower? He's not just an idiot. I think water has entered his brain. What a wastrel. A supreme grade subdivine crystal is so expensive. He actually used it to buy a flower. Many people shook their heads and sighed. However, a few people in the crowd revealed cold smiles. They stared at Lin Xian with greed in their eyes. Although they didn't know Lin Xian, a person who could take out a supreme grade subdivine crystal so casually must be rich. Moreover, the other party's aura wasn't too strong. Therefore, in their eyes, this was a fat sheep. They wouldn't miss such a prey. Immediately, a few cultivators retracted their auras and quietly followed Lin Xian. On the other hand, Lin Xian narrowed his eyes as a cold smile appeared at the corners of his mouth. There are really people who aren't afraid of death. How dare they follow me? However, he didn't care because his target this time was Julie Tower. Julie Tower was easy to find because it was magnificent and majestic. It was like a heavenly pagoda that stood on the ground. It was filled with the vicissitudes of time. However, the vicinity of the Julie Pagoda was sparsely populated. Basically, no one would come here. When Lin Xian arrived, he looked at the tall Julie Tower in front of him and fell into deep thought. But soon, he frowned and said coldly, "Come out, Humph. Your soul perception is not bad. You can actually detect us." "So what? He's just a kid. Can he run away?" The three of them sneered. "Kid, I advise you to be obedient. Hand over your storage ring, and I'll let you go. Otherwise, don't blame us for being rude." These three burly men were looking at Lin Xian with cold smiles on their faces. "Get lost." "I don't want to kill anyone," Lin Xian said coldly. F***CK. How dare you be so arrogant? Do you know who we are? Kid, no one dares to talk to us like that. You're the first. I'll let you have a taste of what it's like to live a life worse than death. Don't talk nonsense with him. Hurry up and do it." The three of them sneered. In the next moment, 3 king domains rushed out from their bodies and overlapped with each other, shrouding Lin Xian. 3 king domains in the later stage of 6-star? Humph! Lin Xian sneered disdainfully. Such people were nothing in his hands. In the next moment, a black flame appeared on his body and enveloped him. Then, it spread to the surroundings. Suddenly, the three king domains burned fiercely. Damn it! How is this possible? The three of them were horrified because they couldn't believe that their king domains were ignited. Moreover, they were burning. This made them extremely frightened. Chapter 2012. In the next moment, they screamed. Not only were their king domains affected, but their bodies were also covered in flames. They were instantly burned to ashes. In the blink of an eye, the three late-stage six-star kings were reduced to ashes. As expected of the hellfire, it was indeed powerful. A satisfied smile appeared on Lin Xian's face as he gazed at the black flames. This was the hellfire formed by fusing the flames in the fire peak. This kind of flame was already at the level of an almighty. It could easily burn three late-stage six-star kings to death. Feeling the power of the hellfire, Lin Xian was even more excited. He wondered what kind of powerful ability he could condense in the other two peaks. Thinking of this, he took a deep breath and looked at the Julie Tower in front of him. Only by completing the first mission could he continue to enter the three hell peaks. However, at this moment, Lin Xian was extremely solemn. Although he had not entered the Julie Tower yet, he could feel a mysterious energy fluctuation in front of him. This power made him shudder with fear and trepidation. What is this Julie Tower? How can it have such terrifying energy? Lin Xian frowned. At this moment, the Crimson Dragon also said, "Kid, be careful. I'm afraid this place is not simple." Yes, Lin Xian nodded, but he did not enter. Instead, he surveyed the surroundings and thoroughly understood the surrounding environment. After all, he was not here to admire the scenery, but to complete the first mission. When he made his move, there would be a big battle. He had to understand the situation here first. Otherwise, if he was trapped here, he would be doomed. Lin Xian was not in a hurry. He did not make a move these 2 days. Instead, he stayed in Lilac City and waited for an opportunity. In fact, it was not just Lin Xian. Lilac City welcomed 2 powerful figures again. One of them was a woman dressed in white, as beautiful as a fairy. The other was a tall young man who looked like a demon king. These 2 people did not come together, and they were not in the same group. They entered Lilac City at different times. However, without exception, the aura of these 2 people was very powerful. It was obvious that they were favored by the heavens. Moreover, there were many powerful guards beside them. It seemed that their status was either noble or noble. Therefore, in the past few days, other than Lin Xian, there were 2 other groups of people who would occasionally appear near Julie Tower. They seemed to be investigating the situation as well. This scene attracted Lin Xian's attention. Although the other 2 groups of people had concealed themselves and were secretly investigating the situation, the other 2 groups of people did not dare to do so. How could they hide it? With Lin Xian's soul power and the heavenly secret god's eye, he was able to catch a glimpse of them. Therefore, Lin Xian's eyebrows. Could it be that someone else is after Julie Tower? Lin Xian frowned. He'd come here to complete Valurium's mission. However, why did the others come here? What were their motives? Was their goal the same as his? Lin Xian did not know. Therefore, he used his Chaos Doppelganger to secretly follow these people back. He wanted to investigate their situation. The 2 Chaos Doppelgangers disappeared into the void. Like ghosts, they quickly left with the 2 groups of people. Falling Flower House was a very famous pavilion in Lilac City. However, it had been booked by someone at this moment. There was no one else in the pavilion. There was only a woman in white standing there, looking at the setting sun. The afterglow of the setting sun shone on her, as if she was covered with a layer of golden gauze. It set off her delicate face and made her even more beautiful. One of the 2 scouts came to the Falling Flower Pavilion. However, they did not know that a Chaos Doppelganger had also sneaked in. Soon, a middle-aged woman walked up to the 7th floor with graceful steps. She said softly, "Princess, I've investigated thoroughly." "Very good." The woman in white nodded slightly. A smile appeared on her beautiful face. Now, it was time to act. "However, Princess, it is not easy to enter Julie Tower. Although Dongli tribe has declined and is suppressed by our Shili tribe. Even so, Juli Tower is still very dangerous, the middle-aged woman said with a frown. She seemed very worried. The beautiful woman in white smiled and said, "Don't worry. There will be an imperial edict in 2 days. When that time comes, most of the experts in Jili Tower will leave. Only a small number of people will stay. At that time, Juli Tower will be at its weakest. We can take advantage of the opportunity to enter. That thing has been in Dongli tribe for thousands of years. It's time to return it to our Shili tribe." However, right at that moment, a furious roar sounded from the falling flower pavilion. Then, a huge amount of soul power gushed out quickly. It formed a huge pressure and shrouded the entire falling flower house. Boom! Then, there was an earth-shattering sound. The powerful soul power turned into a soul sword and slashed down, killing the chaos doppelganger in an instant. "What's going on?" The white-clothed woman frowned and asked coldly. At this moment, the void rippled and an old man appeared. He said in a deep voice, "Princess, someone is eavesdropping." "Eavesdropping? Who is it?" "I don't know. It has been killed. However, it seems to be a doppelganger. That's why we can't get any information." "Doppelganger?" Hearing this, the white-clothed woman frowned. "Be careful. Why do I feel that someone has the same idea as us?" On the other side, the tall young man also received the news. Then, a smile appeared on his face. "I didn't expect Juli dynasty to help us. There will be an imperial edict in 2 days. Great. We'll take action in 2 days. However, we must be careful of Princess Bai Wei. That woman is not simple. Don't fall into her trap." Buzz. As he spoke, the palace under his feet suddenly shone brightly. Then, a huge array shrouded the palace. Suddenly, the tall young man frowned. "What's going on?" "Young master, someone has sneaked in." Then, an old man appeared. "Find him. We must not let him go. He might be sent by Princess Bai Wei," the tall young man said coldly. His gaze was as sharp as a divine weapon as it streaked across the void. Soon, a chaos doppelganger was found. However, Wonton's doppelganger exploded instantly, turning into a strong light and dissipating in the void. Damn it! The tall young man's people gritted their teeth when they saw this scene. In this way, they had no idea who was eavesdropping in the dark. However, after thinking about it, they all felt that it must be Princess Bai Wei's doing. Because other than Princess Bai Wei, they could not think of a second person who had the same goal as them. Chapter 2013. However, in an ordinary inn, Lin Xian opened his eyes. The corners of his mouth curled up into a smile. Although the 2 clones had been destroyed, he had heard the news from both sides. 2 days later, Juli Tower's defense would be at its weakest. It seemed that he could only wait until then to make his move. Lin Xian narrowed his eyes. He did not expect that there would be people from the Ninely dynasty eyeing the Juli Tower. What exactly is that thing? Even the people from the Ninely dynasty are eyeing it? Lin Xian was indeed puzzled. The lady in white should be from the Ninely dynasty. As for that young man, he should also be a prince. Therefore, he did not know which dynasty he was from. Moreover, King Valurium was from the Tai dynasty. Therefore, there were at least 3 dynasties eyeing the Juli Tower. Indeed, it was surprising. Could it be that there are some secrets in the Juli Tower? Sure enough, an imperial edict arrived 2 days later. Most of the experts in Lilac City and Juli Tower went to receive the imperial edict. Princess Bai Wei and the tall young man also went to receive the edict. However, they did not bring the people beside them. Instead, they had the people beside them wait outside to receive them. Princess Bai Wei and the tall young man entered the Juli Tower by themselves. Of course, there was another person, and that was Lin Xian. How could he miss such a good opportunity? Therefore, when the experts of the Juli Tower went to receive the imperial edict, Lin Xian also hid in the void and started to move towards the Juli Tower. Most of the experts in the Juli Tower had left, and it was empty. Therefore, Lin Xian was safe for the time being. He did not move forward rashly. Instead, he carefully checked his surroundings. Therefore, His speed was not fast. As for the other two people, the tall young man and Princess Bai Wei, they were very fast. Soon, they arrived at the center of the Jili Tower. The Jili Tower looked magnificent from the outside. Inside, it was filled with vicissitudes. Every stone and building had existed for countless years. There was even a mysterious power lingering on it. When the tall young man arrived, he looked around and carefully sensed his surroundings. Then, his lips curled into a smile. He realized that the information he had received was correct. The item was indeed here, and there was no one around. It seemed that this time, he would definitely succeed. Wang. However, at this moment, the void suddenly trembled. Immediately after, the tall young man's expression changed, and he turned around to leave. But soon, he froze, cold sweat dripping down his face. This was because the entire void had been sealed. It was as if there was a pair of invisible hands firmly suppressing him. At this moment, an aged voice came from behind the tall youth. "Young man, your reaction is quite fast. You were actually able to detect it in advance. But so what? You can't escape from me." The tall young man's face turned extremely ugly, and at the same time, his heart beat wildly. An expert? This was definitely an expert. He never thought that there would be such an expert in the Jili Pagoda. Originally, he thought that there were not many experts left in the Ninely Pagoda. However, it seemed that he was wrong. There was a peerless expert guarding this place. Judging from the other party's aura, he should be close to the level of a peerless powerhouse. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been able to immobilize him so easily. However, at that moment, the aged voice sounded again. "Kid, you should come out as well. Or do you want me to do it myself?" Wang. As soon as he said that, the pressure in the air became even more terrifying, as if it was going to freeze the entire sky. However, this time, a white light lit up in the void, and a woman in white appeared. Roar. Taking advantage of this opportunity, the tall young man roared angrily, and suddenly, a red light rushed out of his body. His body suddenly expanded, and then he forcefully broke the seal of the void and quickly retreated to the side. In the next moment, he saw that the person who had immobilized him was an old man in gray. He wasn't tall, and he had a hunchback. At first glance, he looked like an ordinary old man. However, the tall young man didn't dare to let his guard down, because he knew that this ordinary-looking old man in front of him was extremely powerful. The old man in gray looked at the woman in white and the tall young man, and he sighed softly. "This belongs to the Jili tribe, and outsiders can't get it." Indeed, there was that thing. Hearing this, the tall young man's eyes lit up. This was because although he had received the news previously, he wasn't sure. However, at this moment, with the words of an expert in the Jili tribe, he was finally sure that there was indeed that legendary thing in the Jili tribe. However, the woman in white snorted coldly. "The Jili tribe is also divided into the East and the West. Don't you think that this thing doesn't belong to the East Jili tribe?" The atmosphere in the main hall was very tense. However, they didn't know that when they were confronting each other, a figure was hiding in the distance. This figure was naturally Lin Xian. At this moment, he was hiding in the void, and he didn't let out any aura. He had the Great Dragon Sword Soul, so he could use the Great Dragon Sword Soul to simulate the Great Void technique of the Gu family. Although it wasn't 100% the same, it was 70% to 80% similar, so he didn't let out any aura. However, cold sweat was dripping down his forehead. Fortunately, he was very cautious. If he had rushed out, he would have been discovered by the old man in gray. The old man in gray was extremely terrifying. He was definitely not an ordinary almighty, and he was close to being an exceptional almighty. Such a person could be said to be extremely terrifying. Moreover, what shocked him even more was that these people were indeed here for the thing in Jili Pagoda. Moreover, he faintly felt that this thing might be the thing that he wanted to obtain. Damn it, this King Valurium is really despicable. The first mission is already so dangerous. Lin Xian's face turned black. No wonder those who had come to accept the mission had failed. Jili Pagoda was such a terrifying place that even an exceptional almighty wouldn't be able to succeed. This damn King Valurium, How dare he say that there isn't an exceptional Almighty? If it wasn't for the imperial decree, there would be even more terrifying experts in Jili Pagoda. At this moment, Lin Xin frowned. This was because he could feel a few powerful auras rushing in from outside Jili Pagoda. Indeed, in the next moment, the old man in the main hall sighed, and his eyes lit up again. He looked at the long passageway in front of him and said loudly, "You guys are indeed here." Buzz, buzz, buzz. Indeed, in the next moment, the void split open, and 5 figures appeared in the main hall. The person in the lead was an old man with a head of white hair, and his aura was sharp. Behind him, there were 3 men and 1 woman, all of whom looked middle-aged. These people emitted powerful light, and each of their auras was that of an almighty. Chapter 2014. The old man in the lead had a stronger aura and was close to that of a peerless expert. His strength was similar to the gray-robed old man in Jili Pagoda. "Western Jili, it's you. It's been so long. Have you not given up yet?" The gray-robed old man looked at the 5 figures floating in the sky and sighed. "Give up? Why should we give up?" The 5 newcomers sneered. "You should be the ones giving up." The white-haired old man snorted. "This thing has been in your hands for thousands of years. It's time to change it. This belongs to Eastern Jili. No one can take it away from us. Not even Western Jili can take it away." Speaking of which, the surrounding void flickered once more. Then, a few figures walked out swiftly. There were 4 or 5 experts. They were wearing the uniform of Jili Pagoda. Their eyes were sharp and their expressions were cold. Obviously, they were the experts guarding Jili Pagoda. Xian took a deep breath when he saw the scene. This is 2F** King terrifying. He would not be able to fight back against such a lineup. At this moment, there were at least 10 experts in the main hall. 2 of them were close to the level of a peerless expert. Such a lineup was absolutely terrifying. At the same time, Lin Xian was even more puzzled. What is it that could attract so many people's attention? Why does King Valurium want it too? The news he got from King Valurium was that he was going to take a mysterious box. There was a picture of Jili Pagoda on the box and a hexagram on the back. King Valurium did not say what was in the box. Lin Xian knew that there must be a treasure in the box. However, he did not expect the treasure to be so heaven-defying. In such a short time, there were already 10 experts fighting each other. King Valurium must be hiding some important information. In front of them, the experts from both sides were confronting each other. Terrifying sounds of collisions could be heard in the void. The white-robed lady and the tall young man took the opportunity to escape from the gray-robed old man. Then, they quickly retreated. At this moment, the gray-robed old man in front of them spoke again. "People of Western Jili, I'll give you one last chance. Leave now. I can choose not to attack you. This is something left behind by our East Ninely sage. It's not something you can touch." However, the white-haired elder sneered. "Humph, you're wrong. It's the Ninely tribe's sage. We, the Western Jili, belong to Jili as well. Naturally, we deserve to have it. It's just that you guys from East Jili are too domineering. You guys have been hogging it and refusing to share it. That is why we had no choice but to act. Speaking of which, you guys are too greedy." As the white-haired old man finished speaking, his aura suddenly erupted. Violent waves of air quickly swept in all directions. Clang! Inside the 9 Dawn Pagoda, there were countless runes flickering on the walls and floor. The entire Jili Pagoda was abnormally sturdy. The Jili Pagoda was a building that had been passed down since ancient times. It was extremely sturdy and could definitely withstand such a violent attack. This was also the reason why the experts from the Ninely Pagoda dared to make a move here. "Since you're courting death, don't blame us for taking action." The gray-robed old man from Jili Tower snorted and waved his hand. Immediately, the few almighties around him began to attack. Buzz! A bright light shone in the sky, following which, a fiery red domain flew forward and enveloped the people from the Western Jili Pagoda. The people from the Western Jili Pagoda sneered as well. In the next instant, a blue domain shot out from one of the almighties. It was like seawater as it collided with the fiery red domain. When the two king domains clashed in the sky, terrifying spatial cracks were formed. The spatial cracks were like dancing lightning snakes. It was a ghastly sight. However, the entire Julie Pagoda was shimmering with a mysterious and ancient array. It blocked the spatial cracks. These people were so powerful. Lin Xian, who was hiding in the dark, was also shocked. Although they were all almighties, it was obvious that these people were even more powerful. The people from the Julie tribe were indeed not simple. Raging waves. At this moment, a blue-robed almighty from the western Julie tribe waved his hand. Then, the blue king domain above him surged rapidly. The energy that filled the sky turned into waves and swept forward at high speed. Boom, boom, boom. The void trembled and was instantly torn apart by the blue seawater. The terrifying seawater was as heavy as 10,000 pounds. It was as if a blue mountain was pressing down from the sky. Humph. Raging flames burned the sky. On the other side of the Julie Pagoda, the red-robed almighty also launched a fierce attack. His fiery red domain turned into a fiery red giant. It instantly blocked the seawater that filled the sky. The two types of energy, water and fire, intertwined in the sky and shattered the void. The terrifying energy turned the space into a chaotic mess. Although the Julie tribe was extremely powerful and could use mysterious ancient array runes to defend against this kind of attack, it was still weak. However, the ground began to tremble rapidly. In an instant, the Julie Pagoda also shook. Not only that, but the nearby buildings also shook. After the two almighties exchanged blows, the other almighties also made their moves. They each looked for an enemy and fought crazily. A terrifying battle broke out. King domains appeared one after another. It was as if the world was about to be destroyed. Lin Xian's pupils shrank. A battle of this level made even him shudder. Therefore, he quietly retreated, afraid that he would be affected by the energy. The battle here finally attracted the attention of the entire Lilac City. Instantly, a group of martial artists flew over, wanting to find out what was going on. The Julie Pagoda was a sacred existence in Lilac City. Now that there was a battle, they naturally could not tolerate it. It's over. Lin Xian sighed. He turned around and was about to leave. That was because he knew that it was impossible for him to obtain the treasure. If it were him, he might be able to take advantage of the situation. However, such a large-scale battle had happened. Dozens of almighties were fighting, and their momentum had attracted the entire Lilac City. He probably had no chance at all. If he continued to stay, he might be discovered. At that time, he would be treated as an enemy and be hunted down by the powerhouses of the Julie Pagoda. Therefore, Lin Xian was prepared to retreat. However, just as he retreated, a white light flashed. Then, it condensed in front of him and formed a beautiful figure. The white-robed woman appeared in front of him. The white-robed woman frowned. Her beautiful eyes were filled with surprise and shock. She did not expect that there would be someone else here besides the Eastern and Western Julie tribes and the tall young man. She did not notice this person at all. If the other party did not want to leave and expose himself, she would probably never know. Chapter 2015. She blocked the way and stared at Lin Xian. She asked coldly, "Who are you? Which faction do you belong to?" "Kid, you're quite bold. How dare you hide near us? Don't tell me you're trying to take advantage of the situation?" At this moment, the void on the other side also fluctuated. Then, the tall young man walked out. His scarlet eyes were like two sharp red swords as he stared at Lin Xian. In an instant, Lin Xian was attacked from the front and back. He was in a very dangerous situation. Lin Xian's current situation could be described as extremely dangerous. However, Lin Xian wasn't nervous at all. With a wave of his sleeve, he immediately released the dark red divine dragon. "You're finally out. Ben Huang has been holding it in for too long." The moment the Crimson Dragon God came out, he laughed like an old monster. However, the lady in white and the tall young man frowned. They did not expect the other party to have a helper. However, when they saw that it was a red snake crawling out, they all had a trace of disdain on their faces. Soon, they were frightened by the other party's aura. The aura was unusually sharp. so they had to be careful. 2 against 2. It could be said that both sides were evenly matched. However, Lin Xian smiled and said, "Gentlemen, I have no intention of attacking the two of you. I have an idea. I wonder if the two of you will agree?" "Idea? What idea?" The lady in white frowned and asked. "Speak." The tall young man said in a cold voice, "It's very simple. The three of us will work together to retrieve the treasure of Julie. What do you think? You're really here for the treasure." The tall young man's eyes were cold, but the lady in white's eyes were flickering. To be honest, she was tempted by the idea, because now, those powerful experts have already started to fight. If they were to attack now, they might be able to retrieve the treasure of Julie. "Kid, what right do you have to join forces with us?" The tall young man sneered. "Whether I'm qualified or not, you'll know once you try." Lin Xian wasn't angry. In the next moment, he waved his hand and a ball of black flames rushed out. "You dare to fight me? You really overestimate yourself." The tall youth sneered. Red light burst out from his eyes. A powerful and sharp aura emanated from his body. Then, he threw out a punch. The terrifying fist swept across the void like a fire dragon. Boom! In the next moment, a deep sound rang out as the two collided. Suddenly, a black hole appeared in the void. The entire space trembled along with it. However, in the next moment, the two of them withdrew their palms. Lin Xian stood calmly, but the tall youth's expression changed, because he didn't expect that the other party would actually be able to contend against him. This greatly surprised him. At this moment, Lin Xian asked, "What do you think? Am I qualified to join forces with you?" "Humph." Hearing this, the tall young man coldly snorted. His expression was gloomy and cold. However, it seemed that he had tacitly agreed. On the other side, the woman in white also nodded in agreement. This was because the most important thing now was to retrieve the treasure. She believed that with her strength, she would definitely be able to obtain the treasure in the future. The three of them discussed and prepared to take action immediately. In the next moment, the three of them moved and quickly flew deeper into the Julie Pagoda. "I know where it is. Follow me," the woman in white said coldly. She took the lead and turned into a white flash of light. She led Lin Xian and the tall youth towards a secret chamber. Along the way, there were many formations. However, the three of them used their tyrannical means to destroy the formations. The three of them weren't almighties, but the three of them had the strength to contend against almighties. Therefore, when the three of them attacked together, it was really terrifying. Even if there were one or two formations that were especially powerful and the three of them couldn't destroy, they could easily break them with the help of the Crimson Dragon and Lin Xian's powerful formation attainments. Finally, they arrived at the deepest part of the Julie Pagoda at their fastest speed. The three of them stopped in their tracks. This time, even without the woman in white saying anything, Lin Xian and the tall youth were extremely shocked. This was because they could already feel a heart-palpitating power coming from the front. It was as if there was a huge being that was sleeping. Although the aura wasn't strong, the coercion within it made one want to kneel down and worship it. "This is the place." The woman in white took a deep breath. The tall youth's eyes were burning with passion as he curled his lips into a cold smile. On the other hand, Lin Xian frowned because the aura was beyond his imagination. What exactly was it that was so terrifying? "This is the item of a sage," the Crimson Dragon said in a deep voice. "This aura is too terrifying. It's definitely the aura of a sage. Even an invincible king wouldn't be able to emit such an aura." A sage. Lin Xian's eyes narrowed. Indeed, he recalled that when the eastern and western branches were talking, the people from East Julie had said that this was an item left behind by their sage. Lin Xian swallowed his saliva and secretly asked, "Little White, can we forcefully move it out?" Inside the black earth, the little white monkey hugged the spiritual fruit and shook his head with a helpless look. Although he had the treasure bowl and could move things out of thin air. However, the item in front of him was a sage-level treasure. With the little white monkey's current strength, it was impossible for him to take it out. It seemed like he could only force his way in. Lin Xian's eyes lit up. Then, the tall youth and the woman in white looked at each other, and the three of them attacked together. The woman in white slashed out a bright sword light. It was dazzling and extremely sharp. The tall youth threw out a punch. His fiery red fist brought along a sky full of magma as it surged forward. Lin Xian also threw out a black fist that turned into a black dragon and roared out. 3 terrifying attacks flew forward, intending to destroy the secret chamber in front of them. Boom! There was an earth-shattering sound as a huge crack appeared in the secret chamber. However, at this moment, an even more violent aura came from the secret chamber. Suddenly, the huge wall shattered into pieces. When Lin Xian and the other 2 saw that the secret chamber had been opened, they wanted to go in. However, they immediately stopped in their tracks. There was even a hint of shock in their eyes. That was because they felt 2 powerful auras under the sage's aura. There's someone. The 3 of them stopped in their tracks and looked forward with solemn expressions. Sure enough, 2 figures slowly walked out from under the crumbling wall. They were tall and walked with majestic gait like gods of war. They were 2 middle-aged men wearing the clothes of the Julie Tower. One of them held a silver spear in one hand, while the other held a golden saber in his other hand. Their auras were as deep as the sea. They stood in front of them like 2 barbaric dragons, blocking the way. Chapter 2016. The 2 middle-aged men exclaimed softly when they saw Lin Xian and the other 2. A trace of surprise appeared on their faces. It's 3 kids. I thought they were the experts from the Shili tribe. The other middle-aged man said, It seems that the Julie Tower has been quiet for too long. Even the younger generation dares to fish in troubled waters. Their voices were sonorous and their expressions were extremely cold. Lin Xian and the other 2 frowned because the aura of the 2 men in front of them was too strong. They were definitely the elites among the Almighties. They did not expect the layout of the Julie Tower to be so delicate and meticulous. They even arranged for peerless experts to be in the secret chamber. This made their faces very gloomy. However, at this moment, the middle-aged man with the silver spear snorted, Since you're here, don't go out. As he said this, the silver spear in his hand pierced out. The silver light shone and lit up the entire space. It was as if a silver waterfall was falling from the sky. This attack was very fierce, and the middle-aged man was very arrogant. He used his spear to envelop Lin Xian and the other 2. The other party dared to look down on them, and this made the tall young man very unhappy. Therefore, he roared angrily and struck out with his palm. The fiery red palm turned into a huge handprint and struck forward. It was as if it came out of a sea of fire, and the space was trembling. On the other side, the woman in white also attacked quickly. She quickly swung a white long sword. Suddenly, the sharp sword radiance shone and turned into a huge sword radiance that slashed forward. Lin Xian did not show any mercy. He formed a seal with his palm, and the black flames in the sky gathered to form a black flaming vase. Lin Xian held it in his hand. The vase's mouth was facing down, and the black flames in the sky poured down and enveloped the 2 middle-aged men. Although the 3 of them were not almighties, they were all young geniuses and their strength was extremely terrifying. At this moment, the 3 of them attacked and the momentum was even more terrifying than the almighties. As for the 2 middle-aged men, they were not ordinary almighties. They were the elites among the almighties. Therefore, 3 against 2, the 2 sides were actually tied. Spatial cracks spread out as energy storms swept out in all directions. At this time, Lin Xian sent a voice transmission. Ruzalong, you and Little White go to the secret room to get something. Upon hearing this, a smile appeared on Ruffian Long's face. The little snow-white monkey also came out from the black earth. Then, the dragon and monkey quietly headed towards the secret room. On the other side, the 2 middle-aged higher beings furiously roared as their king's domains covered Lin Xian and the others. Then, he dragged Lin Xian and the other 2 and flew outside. Even though the Julie Pagoda was exceptionally sturdy, the battle between the 5 of them was simply too terrifying. They were afraid of damaging the treasures in the secret chamber. As such, the 2 of them used their king's domains to try and drag Lin Xian and the others away. It had to be said that these 2 middle-aged almighties were extremely powerful. The 2 of them joined hands to suppress Lin Xian and the other 2. Furthermore, they forced Lin Xian and the other two to retreat. The battle outside was even more terrifying. More than 10 Almighties attacked, and their auras shook the heavens. However, the people in the Jili Pagoda had the same thought. They were forcing the people from the western Jili Pagoda to fly out. They wanted to join forces with the martial artists outside the Jili Pagoda to take down the people from the western Jili Pagoda. Damn it! When Lin Xian and the other two were forced to retreat outside, 2 more Almighties and many other martial artists joined the battle. Instantly, the pressure on Lin Xian and the other two multiplied. This was because Lin Xian and the other two were powerful. If it were any other 6-star king, they would have been turned into a bloody mist in an instant. Humph! The tall young man roared as a red glow appeared in his body. Then, his body suddenly expanded. 2 red wings spread out and covered the sky, forming a huge red tornado that swept out in all directions. This was the dragon sparrow bloodline. Damn it, you are from the Great Xia dynasty. When the people in the Jili Pagoda saw this scene, their faces changed. They did not expect this tall young man to have such a background. The Great Xia dynasty was also one of the 9 great dynasties in the Middle Ground. The people from the Great Xia dynasty possessed the bloodline of the ancient divine beast, the Great Xia dragon sparrow. At this moment, the tall young man was using the bloodline of the Great Xia dragon sparrow. The red wings on his back became more and more real, as if they were really the wings of the Great Xia dragon sparrow. They were unusually sharp. They were like 2 red blades that swept out in all directions. In an instant, the 2 Almighties who were attacking him were forced to retreat. On the other side, the lady in white also shouted. A mysterious Tao pattern appeared on her forehead. Then, a shadow appeared behind her. It was like a demon god that stood tall. Boom! As soon as this demonic godlike figure appeared, the surrounding people were all sent flying. When the people in the Jili Pagoda saw this scene, their pupils shrank and they were shocked. Jili Totem, you are from the Jili tribe. They were too shocked. Indeed, they were very familiar with the tall demon god Shadow. It was the Jili tribe's totem. However, this totem could only be activated by people who possessed the power of the bloodline. Moreover, the stronger the bloodline power, the more powerful the totem that was summoned. They did not expect the lady in white to be from the Jili tribe as well. Moreover, she possessed such a strong bloodline power. In an instant, the people in the Jili Pagoda were shocked. However, they would not let these people have their way. Therefore, a large number of experts came forward to suppress them. Buzz, buzz, buzz. At this moment, the 2 Almighties from the Jili Pagoda roared. Mysterious Tao runes also appeared on their foreheads. 2 demon god phantoms also appeared behind them. Totem versus totem. Terrifying energy tore through the void and formed a storm of energy. Lin Xian also felt a great pressure. The tall young man and the lady in white displayed their powerful bloodline power. Instantly, those who were sent flying did not dare to move forward. Instead, they stared at Lin Xian. This was because in their opinion, Lin Xian was the weakest among the 3 of them. At least until now, he had not displayed any powerful bloodline power. Therefore, many people surrounded Lin Xian. Humph! Seeing that these people dared to target him, Lin Xian snorted coldly. Indeed, he did not have any bloodline power. However, his king domain was extremely terrifying. In the next moment, the dragon sword domain appeared. Thousands of sword chi surged in all directions. Instantly, those martial artists who surrounded Lin Xian were sent flying again. However, the middle-aged Almighty with the golden saber was nailed to Lin Xian. With a wave of his arm, the demonic godlike totem behind him extended a huge illusory hand and grabbed at Lin Xian. Buzz! It covered the sky and the earth. It carried a monstrous pressure and enveloped Lin Xian. Seeing this, the tall young man and the lady in white did not try to save him. In particular, the tall young man's eyes flashed with a cold light. Chapter 2017. Boom! In an instant, the illusory palm grabbed Lin Xian and quickly closed around him. Crack! 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 The surrounding sword chi was instantly crushed by the force of the illusory palm. Just as Lin Xian was about to be crushed, a dragon's roar was heard. Then, two sharp sword chi turned into a cross and shone in the air. Then, with a bang, the enormous hand shattered into pieces. What? Seeing this scene, the surrounding experts were all stunned. The middle-aged almighty holding the golden saber was also stunned. But soon, they felt a terrifying aura coming from the front. The aura was so sharp that they felt like they were being penetrated. Damn it! Who is this kid? In the next moment, everyone looked forward and their pupils constricted. Because in front of Lin Xian, a green sword shadow appeared. It was as if a huge dragon was circling there, and it looked very lifelike. What kind of bloodline power is this? What a terrifying sword chi. At this moment, even the top almighties felt a chill run down their spines. The woman in white and the tall young man were also shocked, especially the tall young man, whose face was gloomy. Originally, he thought that the attack just now would be able to kill Lin Xian, but he did not expect that not only did Lin Xian dodge it, but he also used such a terrifying sword shadow. Even though he had the bloodline of the great Xia Dragonfinch, he could not help but tremble in front of the sword shadow. Fortunately, he was able to restrain himself. However, he was extremely shocked in his heart. The appearance of the great dragon sword soul caused a change in the battle situation. Although Lin Xian did not have the bloodline power, the strength that he displayed was not inferior to the woman in white and the tall young man who had the bloodline power. In fact, he was even more powerful. Therefore, for a moment, Lin Xian and the others who were originally suppressed were once again at a disadvantage. Hurry up and stop them. We must not let them escape. The middle-aged almighty holding the silver spear roared crazily. However, at this moment, a white figure flashed past him. Then, a snow-white little monkey appeared in the void. It was very cute, and its big eyes were like gems. At this moment, it was dancing with joy. On top of its head, there was a furry little paw holding an antique box. The box was not big. It was only the size of a palm, but it was very simple. The image of the Jili Pagoda was engraved on it. Below it was a 6-point array that was emitting a faint golden light. Oh! The snow-white little monkey held the box, looking around and jumping in the air. I'll go, little one. Slow down. Behind it, the crimson dragon sighed. Even his body was charred black from being struck by lightning. This was because there was a powerful array protecting the antique box in the secret chamber. If the dark red divine dragon wasn't an array master, it wouldn't have been able to open it in a short time. But even so, he was still struck by the lightning flames in the array. Fortunately, he had the physique of a divine beast, so he was not damaged by the lightning. Crimson dragon pain. Looking at this scene, the surrounding almighty were all dumbfounded. Especially the almighty from the Jili Pagoda. They were all dumbfounded. That was the relic of the sage that they had guarded for thousands of years. It was protected by a powerful array. Even a peerless almighty would not be able to break it. But now, it had been taken out by someone. How did this monkey and dragon do it? They could not believe it. However, the truth was right in front of them. Kid, I got it. The crimson dragon also came near Lin Xian, grimacing in pain. However, his eyes were still filled with uncontrollable excitement. However, the people from the Jili Pagoda had indeed gone crazy. They stared at the snow-white little monkey nervously. At the same time, many people quickly turned around and blocked the path. Buzz. At this moment, a red ray of light cut through the void and struck the snow-white little monkey fiercely. That was the attack of the tall young man. The red wings behind him flew across the sky like a heavenly knife and slashed at the snow-white little monkey. The snow-white little monkey was shocked. Its body swayed, and it wanted to escape. However, in the next moment, the tall young man stretched out his hand and grabbed the antique box. Boom! I got it. The tall young man held the box in his hand, and a smug smile appeared on his face. Then, he roared angrily. The red light on his body exploded and shrouded the entire space. He flapped his huge red wings and turned into a gust of wind to escape into the distance. Damn it! Chase after him. Don't let him escape. Stop him. Angry roars could be heard as the people from the Jili Pagoda went crazy. The people from the western Jili Pagoda were also shocked. They did not expect that after snatching for such a long time, they would end up benefiting someone else. People from the Great Xia dynasty, how dare you snatch the relic of the Zhili tribe? Do you want to start a war between the two countries? Angry roars could be heard. However, the tall young man did not care about them at all. He used his maximum speed to escape as though he had gone crazy. Buzz. Stay here. At this moment, a huge hand stretched out and covered a radius of 1,000 miles. It even shrouded the tall young man. However, at this moment, the sound of space being torn apart could be heard near the tall young man. Then, a few empty gods appeared and attacked the huge hand rapidly. These people were the tall young man's subordinates. They had been waiting outside. When they saw the tall young man and received the message from him, they attacked him ferociously. Ha 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 ha. Zhili Pagoda, thank you for your relic. The tall young man laughed maniacally. Then, he was protected by a group of people, and they quickly escaped into the distance. The lady in a white shirt snorted and flew up to the sky. She led the experts from the Western Zhili tribe and chased after the tall young man. The people from the 90 Pagoda were not to be outdone. They roared angrily and swore that they would find the people from the Great Xia dynasty. For a moment, no one cared about Lin Xian. Lin Xian was stunned. He pulled the snow-white monkey and the crimson dragon to him and asked, "Did someone snatch the relic?" He was puzzled. The two of them were greedy, and it was impossible for them to lose the relic so easily. Even if the relic was lost, the two of them would be the first to make a move. However, the two of them did not seem to have any intention of making a move, and they were laughing slyly. The crimson dragon laughed and said, "The box was indeed taken away by someone. However, the relic was not in the box." Woo ji, the snow-white monkey grinned, and there was a hint of evil in its gem-like eyes. "Where is the relic?" Lin Xian asked. The crimson dragon said, "It was taken out a long time ago. It is still in the secret chamber." They would never expect that we only took out an empty box and left the relic there. Chapter 2018. You two go quietly. I'm too big of a target. I'm afraid I'll be targeted by them. Lin Xian said. He didn't follow anyone. Instead, he soared into the sky and left the place. The crimson dragon laughed proudly. The two of them turned into a ball of light and disappeared into the void again. The battle outside was earth-shattering. The entire void was filled with violent energy, tearing thousands of miles of cracks from time to time. At this moment, the martial artists in Lilac City raised their heads and exclaimed. They didn't expect such a fierce battle to break out. It had been many years since something like this had happened. In an ordinary inn, Lin Xian waited anxiously. At this moment, two flashes of lightning came from outside the window. Then, they turned into a snow-white monkey and a crimson dragon. "They're here." Lin Xian's eyes lit up. He raised his hand and formed countless formations, covering the entire room. Then, he asked, "Did you get it?" "I got it," the crimson dragon said. Then, it opened its mouth and spat out a red ball of light. The outside of the red ball of light was full of dancing flames. Inside, there was a spotlessly white hand bone. "Kid, be careful. This thing is too scary. If I hadn't wrapped it in dragon flames, I wouldn't have been able to take it out. I've already used more than a dozen formations to protect it," the crimson dragon said with a face full of fear. Indeed, it was his first time coming into contact with something left behind by a saint. And from the looks of it, it was a saint's bone. A saint's bone. Lin Xian was also very excited. He stared at the red ball of light in front of him and the white bone inside. "Is this really a saint's bone?" Lin Xian was very shocked. Then, he said, "Ruzalong, tear a corner of your formation. I want to take a look." He was indeed very shocked, because this was the treasure that King Valurium asked him to take. He didn't expect it to be a saint's bone. This was definitely a heaven-defying treasure. He just didn't know that King Valurium was so bold to ask for such a thing. When the crimson dragon heard Lin Xian's words, it waved its claws and tore apart a corner of the formation. Lin Xian walked up and observed with rapt attention. However, at this moment, the spotlessly white finger suddenly blossomed with a golden light. Then, a golden beam of light gushed out. In the blink of an eye, the golden light arrived in front of Lin Xian. On the other hand, Lin Xian's pupils shrank as he felt a sense of impending death. The next moment, without any hesitation, the black robe battle armor enveloped his body. At the same time, he summoned the dragon sword realm to form a huge divine shield in front of him. However, it was still useless. The golden light instantly pierced through the battle armor and the dragon sword spirit domain. It was too terrifying. This was the killing intent emitted by the saint's bone. No one below the king realm could resist it. The crimson dragon and the snow-white monkey's expressions changed drastically. They didn't expect this to happen. However, at this critical moment, a lilac suddenly flew out from Lin Xian's sleeve and blocked in front of Lin Xian. This was just an ordinary lilac, but at this moment, it blocked the attack of the saint's bone. Then, the golden light disappeared, and the white clove slowly fell to the ground. The petals scattered all over the ground. "Kid, are you okay?" The crimson dragon hurriedly closed the formation. At the same time, it retracted the saint's bone. "I'm fine. That was close." Cold sweat flowed down Lin Xian's forehead. This bone was too terrifying. It was almost pierced through. Then, he looked at the lilac on the ground with a face full of fear. He bought this flower for fun. He didn't expect it to save his life. Forget it. Let's seal it first. The saint's bone is too terrifying. I don't think we can handle it at all. Put it in the black earth. It's safe there. Lin Xian didn't dare to let the saint's bone stay outside. If it caused another mutation, the people from Jili Tower would definitely come for it. Then, Lin Xian put the saint's bone in the black earth. Then, he and the crimson dragon quietly left Lilac City. Along the way, they heard the surrounding cultivators talking about Jili Tower and the Great Xia dynasty. It was clear that this matter had spread and caused an uproar. The people from the Great Xia dynasty must have found out that the box was empty. However, when the time came, they wouldn't be able to explain themselves. The people from Jili Tower wouldn't believe them. Moreover, they wouldn't know that the real saint's bone was in their hands. However, Lin Xian still had a doubt, because this was something that the king of Valurium wanted. He wouldn't be satisfied if he gave it to the king of Valurium. After all, this was the saint's bone. It was extremely precious. However, if he didn't give it to the king of Valurium, he wouldn't be able to enter the 2 mountains behind to cultivate. Therefore, Lin Xian was hesitant for a moment. Forget it. Compared to the saint's bone, 2 mountains were nothing. Lin Xian thought for a moment and decided to keep the saint's bone. After all, saints were legendary existences. In the current world, there was no trace of them at all. They were existences that were even more terrifying than invincible kings. Even the 4th-generation successor of the Great Dragon Sword hadn't reached the saint realm. One could imagine how terrifying a saint was. The bone left behind by a saint was definitely extremely precious. Moreover, the world knew that the people from Jili Tower were chasing after the people from the Great Xia dynasty. The king of Valurium must have received the news. If he said that he couldn't find it, the king of Valurium wouldn't suspect him. Therefore, Lin Xian prepared to return. With a wave of his hand, a spirit boat appeared, carrying him into the air. His soul entered the Black Earth. In the Black Earth Kingdom, He too was also very excited. To be honest, he hadn't obtained a saint's bone before. Therefore, he was very excited to have such a treasure in his hands. "Kid, I have to say that you are really surprising. You can even get a saint's bone." Seeing Lin Xian enter, He too shouted excitedly. "How is it? Do you have a way to use it?" Lin Xian asked. This was the question he was most concerned about. If he couldn't use it after obtaining it, that would be the most frustrating thing. It was like guarding a mountain of gold and silver, but couldn't spend a single cent. That feeling was unbearable. However, He too had followed the 4th-generation successor of the Dragon Sword. His understanding was far beyond Lin Xian's imagination. "Don't worry. Although I have never seen a saint's bone, I still have a way to use it." When one reaches the saint realm, it is said that they cultivate the law. Therefore, this bone definitely has the aura of the law. Moreover, this saint's bone is abnormally strong. Look at the Tao patterns on the bone. If you can comprehend these Tao patterns, the benefits will be unimaginable. Chapter 2019. In fact, I think it's possible to refine the saint's blood from this bone. If that's the case, it'll be the best. The saint's blood is unimaginable. It's extremely beneficial to refine a cultivator's body. It can even be used as a source of energy for Black Earth. Even though it's just a small hand bone, it's full of treasures. All right, then I'll have to trouble you. This matter will be left to Black Earth. Lin Xian can't help much now, so he can only use all his strength to drive the spirit vessel. Tai Dynasty, Valurium Palace. It was early in the morning and the sun had just risen. Thousands of rays of light shone on the mountains. At this moment, a gray light streaked across the sky like a sword light, shuttling through the mountains quickly. Then, it entered the depths of Valurium Palace. Your Highness, there's news. The gray sword in tint turned into a gray-robed man and said respectfully, "Boom." The door of the palace slowly opened and King Valurium strode out. He wore a crown and a royal robe. His aura was like a dragon. "Speak." A majestic voice sounded. "The saint's relic in Jili Pagoda has been stolen. It's Prince Xiangyu of Great Xia Dynasty." "It's really stolen?" King Valurium asked again. "It's indeed stolen. Now, the entire Jili Pagoda, including the people of Western Jili, are chasing after Xiangyu. Father, we've failed." At this moment, a purple-robed young man came from behind. He frowned and seemed unhappy. "No." King Valurium smiled. "However, do you think an almighty can enter Jili Pagoda and steal the saint's relic? It's obviously impossible." "Father, are you saying that you've never thought of getting the saint's relic? This thing is so precious. We must send a large number of elites to get it. Even a peerless almighty wouldn't be able to succeed with just a single person. So, we're sending people to disrupt the battle. Once the news of the nest of 10,000 dragons is out, the 9 nations will be stirred up. Tai Dynasty will definitely be caught in it. It's better to cause a war between the 2 nations now and deplete their strength. This way, we'll have an advantage when the battle for the nest of 10,000 dragons starts. In the past, those people failed because they didn't disrupt the war at all and couldn't cause the 2 countries to go to war. And now that brat has succeeded. I believe that the relationship between the Ninli dynasty and the Great Xia dynasty must be very tense. Who knows, the experts from both sides might even fight. At that time, some of them will definitely die. We just need to watch from the side. Moreover, the things of the saints are just legends. Don't take them seriously. Even if there is, it's a hot potato. We can't eat it now. Father is wise." Behind him, the purple-clad young man's face lit up when he heard this. "However, have you prepared the things for the 8th prince?" Valurium waved his hand as he spoke. Immediately, the gray-robed man who was kneeling in front of him left the hall. The purple-clothed youth said, "Don't worry, father. Everything is ready." Hearing this, Valurium nodded slightly, then said, "We're already on the 8th prince's side. There's no turning back. If the 8th prince fails in the end, I'm afraid our Valurium palace will suffer a great blow. Don't worry, father. 8th brother has gathered many experts this time. He definitely has the strength to fight for the crown prince's position." Valurium nodded, then looked into the distance, his eyes incomparably deep. 10 days later, a figure arrived. This person was Lin Xian. He was travel-worn, but he had rushed over and used the super transportation formation to return to Valurium Palace. Taking a deep breath, Lin Xian strode into the depths of Valurium Palace. "Stand." There were 2 guards at the door, holding spears in their hands, blocking the way. Lin Xian said in a low voice, "My name is Lin Xian. I have a matter to discuss with the king. Please pass on my message." Wait. A guard went in to pass on the message. It didn't take long for him to return. He said respectfully, "Lin Gongzi, please." Lin Xian nodded and followed the guard inside. In the distance, immortal mist drifted. A great hall was hidden in the clouds like an immortal's palace. By the time he reached the steps of the great hall, the guard had already retreated. Only Lin Xian remained. Stepping on the stone platform, He was surrounded by clouds. It was as if he was in an immortal's paradise. Creak. The vermilion doors opened, and Lin Xian entered the great hall. It was empty inside. There was only a stalwart figure standing at the front with his hands behind his back. "Greetings, Your Highness." Lin Xian cupped his fists slightly, then said, "The operation failed. I didn't get the box you wanted." "Lin Gongzi has returned." Valurium turned around, a smile on his face. "I've heard about it. The whole world knows about it." The box was snatched away by the Great Xia dynasty. Not only the Great Xia dynasty, but also the people of Western Juli. They were well prepared. They brought a large number of experts to attack. It's normal that you didn't get it alone. So you're not to blame. Hearing this, Lin Xian frowned. He was surprised, because this was not what he had expected. He thought that Valurium King would be depressed and angry, but now it seemed that he wasn't. In fact, Valurium King seemed happy. This made Lin Xian very confused. "What about the other two missions?" he asked subconsciously. "The other two missions continue. You can enter the other two mountains, as long as you complete the mission," Valurium King said with a smile. "Although you didn't get the box I wanted this time, you were able to retreat safely from so many experts. This is enough to prove your strength." He can continue? This made Lin Xian even more surprised. Could it be that Valurium King didn't want the saint's treasure at all? However, at this time, Valurium King spoke again. "Are you willing to accept the second mission?" "Yes." Lin Xian nodded. "I'd like to see what game Valurium King is playing." "The mission is very simple. Kill someone." "Kill someone?" Lin Xian raised his eyebrows. It was indeed simple and crude. He asked, "Who do you want to kill?" "Sword King of Breeze, by Zijing." Valurium King waved his sleeve and threw a jade slip to Lin Xian. Lin Xian reached out to take it. Valurium King said, "This jade slip contains information about Bai Zijing. It contains his cultivation, strength, and the characteristics of his cultivation method. Study it. Prepare to leave in 3 days." "Okay." Lin Xian nodded and left with the jade slip. After Lin Xian left, the young man in purple came out again. He asked, "Father, can he succeed this time?" Chapter 2020. Valurium King's eyes flickered. According to their strength, it's a 50-50 chance. However, this Bai Zijing is a sword expert that the first prince paid a great price to invite. His existence is a great threat to us. So, let this kid make a move. Even if he can't kill the other party, injuring such a powerful sword king will be of great benefit to us. Hearing this, the purple-clothed youth also smiled. In other words, Bai Zijing might not die, as long as that kid can win. The Tai dynasty had a vast territory. With a large territory, there were many natural people. With many people, there were many opportunities to produce geniuses. Therefore, the Tai dynasty could be said to be full of geniuses and experts. However, among the younger generation, there was one person who was very famous. He was a swordsman. To be precise, he was a sword king. His name was Bai Zijing. Although Bai Zijing only had the cultivation of a 6-star perfection, his combat strength was already comparable to a mighty figure. He could even fight a mighty figure. It was rumored that he had even killed one before. It was rumored that once his sword technique was used, no one could match it. Even the older generation had to retreat. And now, there was another crazy news that quickly spread throughout the Tai dynasty. That was, Bai Zijing was going to challenge various experts to break through. Have you heard? Bai Zijing has already gone south. I think he's going to challenge Sky Sword Elder. He wants to challenge Sky Sword Elder? He's crazy. If I remember correctly, Sky Sword Elder is a mighty figure. And Sky Sword Elder is also a swordsman. A mighty swordsman is definitely terrifying. This Bai Zijing actually dares to challenge him. What exactly is he relying on? I don't know. I think he wants to break through to the realm of a mighty figure. After all, he's already a 6-star perfection now. He's only one step away from the realm of a mighty figure. When he becomes a true mighty figure, his strength will definitely be even more terrifying. I'm afraid that even those mighty figures who have cultivated for hundreds or thousands of years are no match for him. Heavens, this guy is too terrifying. Do you think he'll succeed? I don't think so. Sky Sword Elder isn't someone to be trifled with. Moreover, he's been famous for almost 1,000 years. The entire Tai dynasty was talking about this matter everywhere, because this matter was simply too shocking. However, they did not know that at this moment, in a barren mountain in the south, two figures were confronting each other. One of them was a young man in white. He carried a green sword on his back and stood in the air with a heroic bearing. The other person was an old man wearing a Taoist robe. His gaze was gloomy and his face was withered. However, his eyes were extremely sharp, like a peerless sword that pierced through the void. Little doll, are you sure you want to fight me? The elder with a sharp gaze was none other than Sky Sword Elder. I'm naturally here to fight you. Sky Sword Old Man, draw your sword. The young man in white robe said coldly. He was by Zijing, a very young sword king. If that's the case, then don't blame me. Old Man Tian slowly pulled out a red sword and coldly said, My bloodthirsty sword will not return to its scabbard without seeing blood. Wong. As soon as he finished speaking, he raised his sword and a red sword chi shot out quickly. Like a river of blood, it shone in the air. Accompanying it was an extremely terrifying aura, as if a peerless beast had awakened in the air. Windslayer. Facing this terrifying sword, the young man in white, by Zijing, was very calm. He quickly unsheathed the green sword on his back and thrust it forward. Boom. Suddenly, the river of blood that filled the sky was cut in half, scattering countless blood flowers and surging in all directions. That sharp attack and murderous aura were also destroyed by a single sword strike. You can see through my flaws? Opposite him, Sky Sword Elder frowned. To be honest, although he had heard of the other party, in his opinion, the other party was not able to fight with him. He was an almighty, and the other party was only a 6-star king. Although he was also a swordsman, the gap between their realms could not be made up at all. However, he did not expect the other party to change his attitude after just one sword attack. Although it was just one sword attack, he had already realized that the other party's timing and the sharpness of the sword aura were not inferior to his. This made him extremely shocked. Interesting. Kid, I'll let you see my true strength. Sky Sword Elder snorted coldly, then attacked again. This sword pierced through the void, emitting a terrifying aura. It was like a divine red painting that pierced through the 9 heavens. This sword was too fast, so fast that it dazzled one's eyes. However, after attacking, Sky Sword Elder's pupil shrank, because he realized that the other party's sword was even faster than his. But how was this possible? He had already displayed his best sword technique, the Heavenly Sword technique. Even an almighty could not dodge the terrifying sword light. However, the other party's sword light was even faster than his. This simply made him unable to believe it. Who exactly was this young man in front of him? He was actually so powerful. Damn it! Sky Sword technique. Sky Sword Elder finally roared and fought with all his might. He realized that although the other party was a 6-star king, he was definitely not weaker than him. He had to fight with all his might. Therefore, he waved the red sword in his hand, and immediately, 18 red sword lights were drawn in the sky. They formed a mysterious pattern in the sky. Once this sword pattern was formed, its terrifying aura kept rising. Its power was several times stronger than the previous sword light. Buzz. This sword pattern shrouded the front, wanting to suppress the white-clothed youth, by Zijing. Finally using your ultimate move? On the opposite side, by Zijing's lips curled up slightly, and there was a sharp light in his eyes. Gale Sword Blade. Facing the terrifying red sword pattern, by Zijing did not dodge at all. Instead, he held the sword with both hands. Then, he attacked with the green sword in his hand. Boom! A hurricane blew in the sky. Then, a cyan sword light formed in the storm and slashed forward. The speed of this sword was extremely fast, and it was unusually fierce and powerful. Crack! In the next moment, A corner of the red sword pattern in the sky was cut open. Then, the green sword light instantly poured in like a storm. Oh no! Seeing this scene, Sky Sword Elder's face changed. Then, he blocked with his sword, forming a circular sword aura that condensed in front of him. Clang! That sword aura had just formed when the green sword aura slashed over. Then, it slammed into it. In the next moment, the sword light dimmed, and Sky Sword Elder was sent flying while vomiting blood. How is this possible? How is this possible? Sky Sword Elder flew out for thousands of meters before stabilizing his body. However, his eyes were filled with disbelief. Chapter 2021. Because this was too shocking, too unexpected, a young man was actually able to defeat him. Furthermore, it was in terms of sword Dao. This was something that he could not accept. Kid, I admit that I've underestimated you. However, it's impossible for you to defeat me like this. Next, I'll show you the true power of the Sky Sword technique. As he spoke, Old Man Sky Sword wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth and held the red sword tightly. His entire body emitted a blood-red aura, and the surrounding sky was instantly dyed blood-red. He still wanted to fight? However, Bai Zijing, the young man in white, frowned. His opponent had already lost, but he still refused to stop. This made him a little angry. Therefore, he snorted at the next moment and the aura on his body rose rapidly. Green sword edges circled around him, and in the wind, there were bolts of blue lightning that rose rapidly. You've already taken up too much of my time. Therefore, let's end this with a move of wind, Bai Zijing said indifferently. You're courting death. Old Man Sky Sword was furious. No one had ever dared to say such words to him. Therefore, he snorted at the next moment, and there was a sharp light in his eyes. Sky Sword secret technique, Sky Killing. Old Man Sky Sword finally used his strongest move. Then, the sky changed color, and there was a sea of blood surging. The red sword light slashed out at the fastest speed. This sword was too fast, so fast that it was simply unbelievable. In the blink of an eye, the sharp sword light was already in front of him. It was just like traveling through time and space. Competing in speed with me? You're not good enough. At this moment, Bai Zijing was also extremely terrifying. The green sword in his hand also slashed out instantly. Whirlwind Wild Cloud. Although it was released later, the speed of this move increased sharply. In an instant, the red sword light in front of him was split into two. Not only that, the green sword light had already enveloped Old Man Sky Sword. Buzz, buzz, buzz. A gale swept out, and Old Man Sky Sword retreated again with blood dripping from his body. A strand of pale hair also fell from the sky. 16 moves. In an instant, 16 sword marks appeared on his body. There was even one that brushed past his heart. Lost. Sky Sword Elder was completely defeated. His body began to tremble, and the hand holding the sword became unstable. This was because his opponent's swordsmanship was simply too powerful. In an instant, these 16 sword scars could kill him 16 times. It was just that the other party hadn't made a move yet. You won. Old Man Heaven's Sword said this softly, and instantly, he seemed to have aged several hundred years. Hearing this, Bai Zijing withdrew his green sword and said in a deep voice, I won't kill you, nor will I ask you to do anything else. You just need to seal your sword for 30 years and not make a move. He had his reasons for saying that. The reason he challenged all kinds of sword experts was because he wanted to surpass himself. Apart from that, there was another reason. It was to help the first prince clear the obstacles. Now in the Tai dynasty, all the princes were fighting openly and secretly, preparing to seize the position of crown prince. Among them, the first prince, the third prince, and the eighth prince were the strongest. And he, Bai Zijing, was the first prince's man. Therefore, those who could not be recruited by the first prince, Bai Zijing would not allow them to be recruited by the third prince and the eighth prince. Therefore, he thought of this method to make them not make a move for 30 years. All right. Hearing this, Old Man Heaven's Sword nodded and heaved a sigh of relief. Not making a move for 30 years was nothing to him. It was because he only needed to go into seclusion. For someone like him, it would take at least 30 to 50 years compared to an official. After getting Old Man Heaven Sword's answer, Bai Zijing's sword into the sky and left. Looking at Bai Zijing's back view, Old Man Heaven Sword had a complicated expression. He did not expect this young man to be so powerful. He was afraid that the Tai dynasty would not be peaceful for the next few years. He sighed because the third prince had once looked for someone to invite him, but he had rejected him for the time being. The reason why Bai Zijing looked for him was probably because of the fight for the position of crown prince. Not making a move for 30 years was also a good thing for him. It was because he could avoid such a whirlpool of power struggle. Every time there was a fight between the princes, countless experts would die. There would be people who would lose their lives because they stood on the wrong side. Not long after, the news of Bai Zijing defeating Old Man Heaven Sword swept through the Tai dynasty like a gust of wind. In an instant, all the martial artists in the Tai dynasty knew about it. Everyone was in an uproar as they discussed animatedly. Heavens, this Bai Zijing is too terrifying. He actually defeated Old Man Heaven Sword? Isn't Old Man Heaven Sword an almighty? Moreover, he's an expert in the sword Dao. How did he lose? Not only that, I also heard even more shocking news. It's said that Old Man Heaven Sword failed and is not allowed to make a move for 30 years. Discussions sounded one after another, all about Bai Zijing and Old Man Heaven Sword. Ha 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 ha. Great. In the palace of the Tai dynasty, a round-faced young man immediately bowed his head and laughed when he heard the news. He was wearing a yellow robe and was slightly plump. His eyes were smiling like a Maitreya Buddha. He was the crown prince of the Tai dynasty. Bai Zijing, I really didn't misjudge him. Yeah, I didn't expect this kid to be so powerful. Even Old Man Heaven Sword is not his match. Someone laughed at the side. They were all experts recruited by the crown prince. I reckon the third prince is going crazy with anger. The third prince originally wanted to recruit Old Man Heaven Sword, but he didn't expect us to beat him to it. Haha, the third prince will definitely go crazy with anger. I can already imagine the look on his face. The first prince laughed heartily. Then, a cold light bloomed in his long and narrow eyes. Don't worry, this is just the beginning. From now on, Bai Zijing will defeat all the sword Dao experts in the Tai dynasty. I will let everyone know that if they don't join me, no one else will be able to get them. In another palace, a tall and thin young man's face was gloomy and abnormally angry. Trash, a bunch of trash, the young man roared. He wore a crown on his head and a purple robe with golden flying dragons embroidered on his sleeves. He was the third prince. At this moment, he also received the news of Old Man Heaven Sword's defeat and instantly went crazy with anger. Prince, I think this should be the crown prince's action to target us, someone said. The third prince snorted coldly. Nonsense, of course I know that. What you need to do now is to think about how to break this situation. After Bai Zijing defeated Old Man Heaven Sword, he went south again to challenge other sword Dao experts. The crown prince is obviously determined. He doesn't want the other princes to get what he can't get. Chapter 2022. That Bai Zijing is too arrogant. Does he really think that he can challenge all the experts in the world? I guess it won't be long before he is defeated. Someone was unconvinced. However, another middle-aged scholar holding a folding fan said, Your Highness, I think we should send someone to assassinate him secretly. Otherwise, I'm afraid it will be difficult for us to recruit any experts in the future. Oh, what is Mr. Situ's opinion? The third prince looked at the middle-aged man holding a feather fan and asked in a deep voice. The first prince's move is very clever. It can stop many experts. However, he has forgotten that by doing so, he will not only be facing us, everyone will become his enemy. Although the first prince is powerful and is born of the empress, do you think he can contend against all the other princes? Speaking of this, the middle-aged man smiled and waved the feather fan in his hand. The others understood what he meant. The third prince was overjoyed. He clapped his hands and said, Yes, that's right. Not only will I be angry, but the other princes will also be angry. Boss, you've really made a bad move this time. The third prince smiled. Hurry up and join forces with the others to kill Bai Zijing? All right, especially Old Eighth. Old Eighth's strength is not weak. We must not let him hide his strength at this time. Orders were passed down one after another. Then, figures walked out of the palace. They went to contact the other princes and prepared to join forces against the first prince. Valurium Manor. At this moment, figures were moving around as news came in from the outside. They sorted out the information and presented it to the depths of the Valurium Manor. In the hall, King Valurium looked at the news in his hand with a solemn expression. The purple-clothed youth beside him also had a gloomy expression. Father, the first prince and Bai Zijing are too arrogant. Do they really want to challenge all the experts in the world? You are wrong. He doesn't want to challenge all the experts in the world. He wants to challenge the experts who oppose the first prince. King Valurium raised his head and placed the jade slips on the table. He then said in a deep voice, since they have taken action, let's take action too. Men, call Lin Xian in. Valurium gave the order, and the guards at the door quickly left like ghosts. After the time for half an incense stick to burn, Su Chen arrived at the hall and asked, Your Highness, you were looking for me? You've already learned about Bai Zijing, right? King Valurium asked. Understood. Lin Xian nodded, while King Valurium said, Very well, you can go now. The bottom line I'll give you is to defeat Bai Zijing and prevent him from taking action for 100 years. Then, the second mission will be considered a success. Got it. Lin Xian nodded, then turned and left Valurium Manor. Looking at Lin Xian's departing figure, the corners of the Valurium King's lips curled up into a smile. First Prince, Bai Zijing, have a taste of the surprise I've prepared for you. After Bai Zijing defeated Old Man Heavensword, he consecutively defeated 2 Sword Dao experts. The 2 of them were older generation figures. They were powerful and had reached the level of almighties. Moreover, their attainments in the Sword Dao were extremely powerful. But even so, they were still defeated and forced not to take action for 30 years. These 2 pieces of news, coupled with the incident with Old Man Heavensword, caused a stir among all the cultivators in the Tai dynasty. All the cultivators, especially the young ones, were as excited as if they had been injected with chicken blood, because it was hard for them to imagine what level Bai Zijing had reached. And those older generation figures were even crazier, because they had witnessed the rise of a genius. The Golden Age is coming. Some of the older generation figures exclaimed. That's right. The Golden Age referred to the era of cultivation geniuses and monstrous geniuses. They would appear in the same era and compete with each other. On the difficult path of martial Dao, dazzling sparks would be created from the collision. And every battle for the position of Crown Prince was the main factor that promoted the Golden Age. Those peerless geniuses and shocking experts would come out one after another and choose a prince to work for. Because when the prince they chose became the Crown Prince, these people would also receive great benefits. They would receive the baptism of the Tai dynasty's dragon vein. This was not an ordinary dragon vein, but the dragon vein that had allowed the Tai dynasty to last for a long time. It spiraled for thousands of miles like a giant dragon, hidden under the ground. This kind of dragon vein baptism could be said to have heaven-defying benefits. This was also why those peerless geniuses and experts would participate in the battle for the position of Crown Prince. For a time, the entire Tai dynasty could be said to be gathering. And at this time, Bai Zijing even announced that he would set up an arena at Mount Nanhua to welcome the challenges of various experts and peerless geniuses. Moreover, the time was set to be August 15th, a month later. August 15th, Mount Hua Sword Tournament. This news instantly swept through the entire Tai dynasty. For a time, countless people were shocked. And those experts and young geniuses all set off for Mount Nanhua. The other cultivators were even more excited because this was definitely a once-in-a-thousand-years event. They would definitely not miss such a good thing. Therefore, these people quickly set off and headed over. The young geniuses snorted coldly and did not take it seriously. They felt that Bai Zijing was too arrogant. He actually dared to challenge the world with his own strength. They decided that they must climb Mount Hua and teach this arrogant guy a lesson. At the same time, under the joint efforts of the third prince and the other princes, the third prince and the other princes also sent their experts to challenge Bai Zijing. This time, they had to defeat Bai Zijing in front of everyone in the world. They wanted to ruthlessly slap the first prince's face in front of the world and let the world know that he was the most qualified person to become the crown prince. August 15th, Mount Hua Sword Tournament. Lin Xian naturally heard the news as well. Immediately, the corners of his mouth curled into a smile. This guy is really arrogant. Great, let's go and meet him. With that, he boarded the spirit boat and flew in the direction of Mount Nanhua. Time passed day by day, and August 15th was getting closer and closer. Countless cultivators had arrived near Mount Hua. The cities near Mount Hua were filled with a large number of cultivators, and there was no lack of mighty figures among them. In fact, there were even those hidden experts, young geniuses, and terrifying swordsmen. In short, those experts that could not be seen usually had all arrived at this moment. On the streets and alleys, everyone was talking about the Mount Hua Sword Tournament and Bai Zijing. Have you heard? During this period of time, Bai Zijing defeated another two sword experts. One is an elder, and the other is a young genius. This kid is too powerful. I'm afraid he's the #1 swordsman in the past 1,000 years. Chapter 2023. Do you think he'll really defeat all the experts in the sword meet on Mount Hua in a few days? I don't dare to say anything about the older generation, but I don't think many people in the younger generation are his match. Yeah, judging from his strength, he's definitely at the level of a prince. But those princes won't come here to fight. So, the number of people who can resist him can be counted on one hand. Not necessarily. You're underestimating the Tai dynasty. Those that you mentioned are all in the open. There are also some hidden in the barren mountains and swamps. They're hermit experts. They don't usually appear. If one of them appears, it'll definitely shock the world. That's true. I remember that a few hundred years ago, there was a person who came from the mountains. He defeated half of the dynasty. Basically, no one in the younger generation is his match. Now that you mention it, I remember it too. Indeed, there was such a person in the historical records. He's too heaven-defying. There are very few people like him. Who knows if he'll come to the sword meet on Mount Hua? If such a person doesn't appear, Bai Zijing will really defeat the younger generation. A series of discussions could be heard. Obviously, everyone was worried about the upcoming sword meet on Mount Hua. In a city 30,000 miles away from the sword meet on Mount Hua, there was a huge super teleportation formation. The formation shone, and then a young figure walked out of it. He was tall and wore a brocade robe. His face was fair, but there was a hint of evilness. After coming out of the teleportation formation, the evil-looking young man raised his head and looked at the towering Mount Hua in the distance. Then, the corners of his mouth curled into a sneer. Bai Zijing, you dare to challenge the heroes of Mount Hua? You're overestimating yourself. I'm here this time. Just wait to be defeated in front of the world. The evil-looking young man sneered. Then his figure turned illusory and disappeared into the void. Time passed quickly, and it was already the 10th of August. There were only 5 days left until the 15th of August. During this period, a large number of experts came to Mount Hua. Most of them were from the younger generation, and those young geniuses also arrived one after another. Among them, the third prince and the 8th prince were the leaders, as well as the other princes. They sent out their capable subordinates, and those young geniuses also rushed over, preparing to kill Bai Zijing. Many veteran almighties had come as well. All of their expressions were cold, and their auras were solemn. It was because Bai Zijing had not only defeated the younger generation, but he had also challenged a few great existences. Such behavior infuriated the veteran almighties. As for the rest, most of them were here to watch the show. This was because they wanted to see what level Bai Zijing had reached. Among them, there was a young man who was valiant and heroic. He stood with his hands behind his back, floating in the void. A large number of young martial artists gathered around him. His name was Li Mingbai, and he was a very famous genius among the younger generation. He was a subordinate of the 8th prince. Brother Li, You've interacted with that by Zijing before. How is he? Is he as strong as the legends say? A warrior beside him asked. However, Li Mingbai said in a deep voice, he is indeed very strong. The rumors should be true. What? Hearing this, the expressions of the surrounding martial artists changed, and they all became extremely solemn. That was because they all knew of Li Mingbai. Furthermore, Li Mingbai was also a top-notch genius. They believed that Li Mingbai would definitely not exaggerate and praise her opponent. Since he said so, that Bai Zijing must be terrifyingly strong. Originally, they thought that the rumors were exaggerated and could not be trusted. But from the looks of it now, that might not be the case. On the other side, on a lone peak, a man in a green robe stood on the peak. His robes fluttered in the wind, and his entire body emitted an extremely sharp aura. Gale Sword Hero, Bai Zijing? Let me see if your Gale Sword technique is stronger, or if my Dian Sword technique is stronger. The corners of the green-robed man's mouth curled up into a smile. If anyone heard this, they would definitely be extremely shocked. That was because the Dian Sword technique was very famous and came from the Dian Sacred Land. The Dian Sacred Land was a sacred land in Middle Ground. Its strength was extremely terrifying and mysterious. It was definitely an existence that could stand shoulder to shoulder with the dynasty. Unexpectedly, the Dian Sacred Land also sent someone. For the past few days, Lin Xian had been riding on a spirit boat and flying quickly towards Mount Hua. However, there was still a distance. He was not in a hurry. Instead, he cultivated silently to maintain his peak state. That was because he knew that since the other party wanted to challenge the world's experts, he would not leave after challenging just one or two people. He had plenty of time and opportunities. The days passed very quickly. In the blink of an eye, it was August 15th. On this day, everyone was excited as they climbed up Mount Hua, which was tens of thousands of feet tall. Since ancient times, there had been a path on Mount Hua, which meant that Mount Hua was extremely dangerous. It was like a natural chasm. However, it was not a problem for these King Almighties. They all soared into the sky like lightning and arrived at Mount Hua. At this moment, there were already a few figures standing at the peak of Mount Hua. The person in the lead was a young man in white. He was like a peerless divine sword as he stood there quietly, emitting a sharp aura. On his back, he carried a green sword. He was Bai Zijing. This time, he did not come alone. There were still a few martial artists standing behind him. These people were sent by the first prince to prevent Bai Zijing from being beaten up by the crowd. Among them, a man and a woman stood very close to each other. They looked like Bai Zijing's lackeys. Oh my, there are quite a few experts this time. The man in blue looked around and immediately narrowed his eyes. The woman in red beside him snorted softly. It was useless no matter how many people came. No one was a match for Bai Zijing, unless a peerless almighty made a move. The auras of these two people were also abnormally sharp. They were also prodigies of the younger generation. Bai Zijing, the youngest Sword King? You're too arrogant. Kid, let me break your legend. At this moment, a young man walked out with large strides. This young man was dressed in black and had a thin face. However, the aura on his body was extremely violent. There was a purple long sword at his waist. The sword was 1/2 meter long and 3 fingers wide. There was no scabbard. One could see that there were incomparably simple sword patterns engraved on the sword. Who is this person? How dare he be the first to step forward? Don't you know him? He's the purple lightning sword, Liao Yin. What? He's Liao Yin, the legendary sword genius? It's said that his sword technique is extremely terrifying and comes from the 9 heavens' divine thunder. This is too exciting. I didn't expect the famous Liao Yin to be the first to step up. This battle will definitely be exciting. Chapter 2024. Everyone was excited. They didn't expect to see such an exciting battle as soon as they arrived at Mount Hua. Kid, did you hear that? Quickly draw your sword and let me defeat you. Liao Yin said coldly. On the other hand, Bai Zijing was calm. He glanced at Liao Yin, then retracted his gaze and said indifferently, "No need, you're not my match." What? Hearing that, Everyone was in an uproar. Sounds of discussion rang out like muffled thunder, spreading in the surroundings. Too many people came to the sword meet on Mount Hua this time. At a glance, there were more than 1 million people. Apart from the front, where there was enough space, the other places, including the sky, the distant mountains, the ancient trees, and the mountain streams, were all packed with martial artists. However, so many people were stunned when they heard that. What did he say? He's not my match? He's actually looking down on Lei Outyin. This kid is too arrogant. As far as I know, Lei Outyin is powerful and famous. He's not weaker than Bai Zijing at all. In front, Lei Outyin's face turned gloomy when he heard that. His gaze was gloomy, and his narrow eyes emitted a cold light. Good. I've always been the arrogant one. I didn't expect to meet someone who's even more arrogant than me today. However, kid, you'll pay the price for your arrogance. As he said that, Lei Outyin took out the purple sword at his waist and stabbed it out. Boom. At the same time, purple lightning descended from the sky, forming a terrifying sea of lightning. Everyone felt their scalps go numb and their hearts skip a beat. That was because the power of lightning formed by the sword strike was simply too terrifying. However, Bai Zijing didn't make a move at all. He still stood with his hands behind his back and said indifferently, "This person isn't worthy of my attack. Beichen, I'll leave him to you." "All right, I'll play with him." At that moment, the blue-robed man behind Bai Zijing laughed. Then, he took a step forward and a blue long sword appeared in his hand. The long sword was very strange. It was 1 meter long, and there were 7 stars on it. They were like real stars that had shrunk countless times and were embedded on the long sword. Buzz. He swung the sword, and everyone's vision blurred. Then, starlight shone in the sky as if stars had descended, blocking the terrifying lightning. What? He actually blocked it. Seeing this scene, everyone was shocked. Lei Outyin was extremely terrifying. He was one of the top sword Dao geniuses of the younger generation. Who was this blue-clothed man? How could he block Lei Outyin's attack so easily? Everyone was stunned. That was because they had never expected such a scene to occur. Lei Ao Tian's expression also changed. He also did not expect that his opponent would be able to block his sword. However, he quickly snorted coldly. So what if he blocked the sword? His strength wasn't limited to this. As expected, in the next moment, Lei Outyin's swordsmanship changed again. Along with his purple sword, 3 purple flood dragons appeared around him. They bared their fangs and brandished their claws as they flew towards the man in blue. A terrifying killing intent pierced through the 9 heavens. The berserk lightning caused the surrounding cultivators to continuously retreat. Big Dipper Dusk. However, in the face of such a terrifying attack, the blue-clothed man remained calm. He waved the blue long sword, and the 7 stars on it glowed together, forming a starlight screen in front of him. Clang, clang, clang. The purple longsword collided with the Big Dipper star screen, along with the 3 lightning flood dragons. Cracks even appeared in the surrounding void, and they quickly spread all over the place. However, the Big Dipper star screen was abnormally strong. It did not shatter under such a fierce attack. Lei Outyin, is this your purple lightning sword technique? If that's all you've got, then it's over. The blue-clothed young man, Bei Chun, said coldly. You want to attack my elder brother, Bai Zijing? You're overestimating yourself. Humph. You're the one who's overestimating yourself. Lei Outyin snorted coldly. How dare you go against me? This time, I'll let you know how powerful I am. In the next moment, he roared, and the light in his body shone even brighter. Streaks of sword chi surged out from the long sword, turning into bolts of lightning and forming a terrifying sea of lightning. The purple sea of lightning lit up the entire sky. In an instant, a terrifying energy pierced through the void. Purple lightning sword technique, destroy. The purple lightning that filled the sky formed streaks of terrifying purple sword shadows that slashed forward. 1 purple sword shadow after another, a total of 6, circled around each other in the air, forming a purple sword curtain, and quickly chopped down with great force. Lei Yin finally used the purple lightning sword technique. It seemed that he was really angry. Once the purple lightning sword technique was used, even a mighty figure would have to go all out to deal with it. That blue-clothed young man probably would not be able to withstand it at all. Indeed, Bai Zijing was too arrogant. He didn't make a move himself, but got his subordinate to do it. Just watch, I'll definitely lose this time. Big Dipper illusory destruction. At this moment, the blue-clothed young man, Bei Chun, also snorted coldly. His gaze became abnormally sharp, and stars flickered in his eyes. The Big Dipper sword also released a terrifying radiance. On the sword, the Big Dipper shone, forming a gorgeous sword light. Then, he slashed down with the sword. Boom, boom, boom. Accompanied by this terrifying sword shadow, a strange phenomenon appeared in the sky. 7 huge star shadows appeared, connecting to form the Big Dipper. Thousands of streaks of starlight descended. These powers were all poured into that sword shadow. Immediately, the sword shadow's power skyrocketed. What kind of sword technique is this? It's too terrifying. The surrounding cultivators were shocked, and they felt a chill run down their spines. That was because this murderous intent was too terrifying and sharp. Boom, boom. In the next moment, the two collided. Then, the 6 huge purple sword shadows in the sky were instantly blasted into pieces. Meanwhile, the Big Dipper sword light pierced through the purple lightning that filled the sky and slashed heavily on Lei Yin. Lei Yin vomited blood and flew out. What? Lei Yin was defeated. When everyone saw this scene, their eyes widened, and their eyeballs almost fell out, because this was simply too unbelievable. If Bai Zijing had made a move and defeated Lei Yin, they might still be able to accept it. But now, Bai Zijing had not made a move at all. Just the blue-clothed young man beside him had defeated Lei Yin in such a domineering manner. This made them feel as if they had gone crazy. In an instant, everyone was in an uproar. However, in the crowd, those peerless prodigies and seniors frowned. That was because they discovered that the blue-clothed young man's victory was not luck at all, but strength. His strength was indeed above Lei Yin's. Who is this blue-clothed young man? He's so powerful. Regardless of whether it was speed, strength, or attainments in sword techniques, he was above Lei Yin. Damn it! When did such a powerful helper appear beside Bai Zijing? Chapter 2025. Damn it! How is this possible? When did such a powerful helper appear by Bai Zijing's side? The first prince. They are definitely the first prince's people. This first prince is too terrifying. Where did he find so many young experts? Their strength is probably not much weaker than Bai Zijing's. There is still a woman in red beside him who has not made a move. Could it be that this woman in red is also an incomparably terrifying top genius? Discussions sounded one after another. Clearly, this scene was completely out of their expectations. Lei Yin was already a very powerful young genius, but in front of Bai Zijing, he did not even have the strength to make him make a move. Thinking of this, everyone's scalps went numb. Looking at the current situation, if the weak stood out, Bai Zijing would not make a move at all. The 2 people beside him would be able to deal with them. In other words, if they wanted Bai Zijing to make a move, they had to first defeat the man in blue and the woman in red beside him. This also prevented everyone from using the wheel tactic on Bai Zijing to exhaust his strength to a certain extent. I'll fight you. At this moment, another loud and clear voice rang out. Then, everyone turned their heads, and a million gazes were all fixed on a figure. It was a tall young man, more than 2 meters tall, his entire body bronze. He was like an iron tower, giving people a heavy feeling. Sure enough, when he walked, the mountains below trembled. Who is this person? Ah, what terrifying strength. I reckon that he can crush this mountain range with one step. It's him. Berserk Sword, Chong Lu. What? It's actually him. Hearing this, the surrounding cultivators were all extremely shocked. However, soon, someone frowned. Although Berserk Sword Chong Lu was also powerful, he was still a little inferior to Purple Lightning Sword Lei Yin. Even Lei Yin was no match for him. But Berserk Sword Chong Lu dared to come out? To be honest, they were indeed puzzled. However, at this moment, a young genius spoke in a deep voice. It's not like that. Berserk Sword Chonglu is not as simple as you think. Indeed, Lei Outyin looked more powerful, but that was reflected in his speed and sword technique. Chonglu's specialty was in his strength and defense. From the previous battle, it could be seen that the blue-clothed youth surpassed Lei Outyin in both speed and sword technique. Unless there was a genius far stronger than Lei Outyin, only then could he defeat the blue-clothed youth. Otherwise, they could only attack from other places. For example, this Berserk Sword Chonglu, his defensive power was amazing. Therefore, no matter how fast the other party was and how skillful his swordsmanship was, if he couldn't break through his defense, it would be futile. Furthermore, since he was known as the Berserk Sword, his swordsmanship and strength must be incomparably terrifying. He might not have been able to match up to the other party in terms of speed, but in terms of strength, he was definitely able to crush the other party. So that's how it was. Hearing this young genius's explanation, the surrounding crowd understood. Thus, they looked forward with great anticipation. The man in blue, Bei Chun, looked at the towering figure in front of him and smiled. The aura on your body is even weaker than Lei Outyin's from before. It seems like your strength is inferior to his. Even he is no match for me. Do you think you can defeat me? Whether I can defeat him or not, we'll know after we fight. Wild Sword Demon Lord coldly snorted and stomped his foot. Suddenly, the mountains below trembled. At the sight of this scene, Bai Zijing let out a soft cry of surprise. Then, he looked toward the man who was like a metal tower. Suddenly, he said, Beichen, be careful. This guy has a thick earth constitution. What? Thick earth constitution? Hearing this, the man in blue, Bei Chun, was also surprised. Then, he narrowed his eyes. You have the thick earth constitution, which is known to have super strong defense? No wonder. No wonder you dare to come out and fight against me. Come on, show me your thick earth constitution. Let me see if it's as strong and unbreakable as the legends say. You'll see. Wild Sword Demon Lord snorted coldly. In the next moment, a layer of earthy yellow light appeared on his body as if he was wearing a layer of earth armor. Lines of rock-like patterns appeared on its surface. Not only that, he also pulled out a huge black sword from his storage ring. The sword was very heavy, like a door plank. When he waved it gently, the pressure caused cracks to appear in the void. However, such a heavy sword was like straw in Demon Lord's hand. It was abnormally agile. Boom. In the next moment, Demon Lord held the huge sword and slashed out. In the sky, a rumbling sound rang out. This sword brought with it a terrifying force of wind and thunder. In fact, black cracks appeared in the sky. Large cracks appeared in the mountain range below. Countless mountain peaks collapsed, unable to withstand the force of all this. Big Dipper Curtain. Feeling the terrifying power contained in this sword, the man in blue, Bei Chin's pupils constricted. In the next moment, he waved the Big Dipper sword in his hand and quickly formed a curtain of stars. In the sky, 7 huge star illusions formed a curtain of light, blocking in front of him. Boom, boom. The sound of a violent collision rang out, and a thunderous sound resounded in the sky. Everyone retreated frantically, afraid that they would be affected by this energy. However, what was shocking was that such a violent sword did not shatter the blue Big Dipper curtain. The Big Dipper curtain looked very thin, like a piece of paper, but its sturdiness was beyond everyone's imagination. Bai Zijing was still very calm, and the woman in red beside him also smiled disdainfully. It's useless. The Big Dipper curtain is very terrifying. Even a mighty figure can't break it, let alone that Demon Lord. Next, it's my turn to attack. The man in blue, Bei Chun, sneered. He tapped his sword lightly, and light appeared in the sky, turning into a huge star that quickly smashed out. Boom. This sword was too fast, like a flying meteor. In an instant, it arrived in front of Demon Lord. Moreover, the blue starry sword light ruthlessly slashed on Demon Lord's body, making a terrifying sound. Cracks appeared in the void, and the surrounding people retreated again, their faces palpitating. However, Demon Lord did not dodge at all. Lines of rock-like runes appeared on his body, completely forming an armor of the earth. He had actually managed to block the sword forcefully. He blocked it? He really blocked it. How is this possible? Heavens, I'm not dreaming, am I? This Demon Lord is too terrifying. His defense is so amazing. Even Lei Yin, who had been defeated earlier, was shocked. Because he knew the strength of the man in blue, Bei Chan. Even he did not dare to take that sword light head-on. However, Demon Lord blocked it without any damage. His defense was heaven-defying. Even the man in blue, Bei Chun, revealed a trace of surprise. His expression became serious. As expected of the thick earth physique, it is indeed incomparably powerful. It can even block my attack. Chapter 2026. Berserk Sword Breaks the Wolf. At that moment, Chong Lu suddenly took a step forward and slashed down with his giant black sword. He used a killer move. The terrifying giant black sword transformed into a black gale that swept out in an instant. Boom! The sword was very sudden. Not only was it powerful, but it was also extremely fast. Therefore, the man in blue, Bei Chun, didn't have time to use the Big Dipper Star Curtain. He was struck by this violent sword strike and was forced to retreat. However, he was also a genius, so in the moment of crisis, he activated a set of star armor. Bei Chun was sent flying. Although he was sent flying, he wasn't injured. However, the blood in his body kept churning. Obviously, this sword had caused him to suffer a loss. Berserk Dragon breaks the sky. At that moment, Chong Lu attacked again. The giant black sword in his hand transformed into a giant black dragon that quickly charged over. This was a high-grade Earth-class technique. When it was used, the momentum was quite terrifying. Big Dipper connects the sky. Bei Chin's pupils shrank. He didn't expect that his opponent could use such a powerful killer move consecutively. He had just been hit, so the spiritual power in his body was very chaotic. Now, he could only react hastily. He roared and crazily urged his spiritual power to form 7 stars in front of him to block the terrifying black dragon gale. Bang bang! There was another earth-shattering collision. Bei Chin retreated dozens of steps again. Every step he took cracked the void. However, he used this opportunity to quickly stab out 3 times with his sword. Clang, clang, clang. These 3 swords were like a meteor shower that quickly crashed into Chong Lu's body. However, Chong Lu's defense was too terrifying, so Bei Chun still didn't succeed. When Chong Lu saw this scene, he laughed loudly. He was wearing the earth armor, and his entire body emitted a dignified aura. The giant black sword in his hand stirred up a gust of wind as it continued to attack Bei Chun. The battle between the two was earth-shattering. The momentum was very terrifying. When the surrounding people saw this, they were even more amazed. Heavens! This Chong Lu is too terrifying. What kind of defense does he have? How can he be so strong? Earth Constitution. The legends are true. He really does have the Earth Constitution. In the crowd, an elder exclaimed. The others were puzzled and asked, Senior, what exactly is the Earth Empress physique? Royal Heaven Empress, these are 2 types of physiques that have been passed down since ancient times. Among them, those with the yellow sky physique cultivate very quickly. They can be said to be favored by the heavens and earth. As for those who possess the Earth Constitution, their defense is extremely strong. Even if they don't cultivate any special defensive techniques, they can still reach a heaven-defying level. It's actually a legendary physique passed down from ancient times. Everyone exclaimed after hearing this. He didn't expect that Chong Lu had such a background. In front of him, North Star was forced back once more. He was incomparably gloomy. In the next moment, he said coldly, I have a high-grade Earth rank martial art too. 13 starry swords. Bei Chun switched to a different sword technique. Suddenly, the aura on his body changed. He no longer focused on defense, but was filled with a terrifying killing intent. With a swing of his sword, the sky was filled with twinkling starlight. Then, Streaks of sword light shot into the sky, turning into huge stars that shone in the sky. Everything within a radius of 10,000 miles was illuminated. A huge star map formed above everyone's heads. It rotated rapidly, emitting a mysterious power. Then, these stars turned into sword light again and quickly slashed down. The sword light that came down was much stronger than before. Each of them was extremely terrifying. In an instant, they enveloped Chong Lu. Chong Lu shouted loudly. Then, the earth armor on his body trembled, emitting a dazzling light. It continued to expand like an exquisite pagoda, enveloping him and forming a powerful defense. Mysterious runes began to form on his body. This was the power of his bloodline. It was his unique earth constitution. At this moment, when he used it, it was as if 10,000 mountains were pressing down on everyone's heads, causing their hearts to tremble. Boom, boom. At the same time, he waved his huge black sword, bringing with it a terrifying power of wind and thunder, and quickly slashed forward. Boom, boom. The terrifying sword light collided, causing the world to shake. Tens of thousands of rays of light shot out in all directions. The entire mountain range trembled, and the surrounding mountain range kept shaking. Some of them directly split open. So terrifying. Everyone looked at the piercingly cold sword light, and their hearts turned cold. They couldn't resist such an attack at all. They couldn't even block it. Amidst the attacks that filled the sky, Chong Lu relied on his terrifying earth constitution and didn't dodge at all. He stubbornly resisted. On the other side, Beichen executed his footwork. He stepped on the Big Dipper and kept dodging. Although there was no victor for a while, Beichen Lu was clearly at a disadvantage. But it was clear that North Star was at a disadvantage. It was only a matter of time before he lost. Damn it! How can this guy's earth constitution be so strong? Beichen's face was gloomy and unwilling, because he didn't expect that the other party's constitution could actually restrain his attacks. It was really unexpected. However, at this moment, Bai Zijing spoke. He said in a deep voice, Beichen, come back? You're not his match. Let Jinying go. As soon as he said that, Beichen's expression turned ugly, but he still nodded. He stepped on the Big Dipper steps and quickly returned to Bai Zijing's side. On the other side, the woman in red took a step forward and walked up. What? There's a switch? Seeing this scene, the million people were shocked. Chong Lu also stopped the huge sword in his hand. Millions of gazes looked at the woman in red in front of him. Everyone was puzzled. Who was this person? They had never seen her before. Could it be that this woman's strength is above that blue-clothed man's? They had seen many female geniuses. However, pure female swordsmen were few and far between. After all, swordsmen were existences that only pursued infinite attack power. Among female cultivators, there were very few who had such extreme personalities. Clang! Chong Lu stood the huge sword in his hand in the void, letting out a deafening sound. Then, he laughed and looked at the figure in front of him. Who are you? Tell me your name. After defeating Beichen, Chong Lu's confidence increased greatly. Therefore, at this moment, when he saw the woman in red walk up, he didn't think much of it. Because he was very confident in his earth constitution, it could be said that his defense was unparalleled. Probably, other than Bai Zijing, he wouldn't be afraid of anyone here. The woman in red looked very delicate, and she had a unique aura. That's right, a valiant aura. Although she was beautiful, she didn't have the graceful aura of a woman. Instead, she had a heroic spirit. It had to be said that it was indeed rare. The woman in red walked forward and stood quietly. Then, she said coldly, my name is Zhou Jianying. I'm Bai Zijing's junior sister. Chapter 2027. The woman in red walked forward and stood quietly. Then, she said coldly, my name is Zhou Jianying. I'm Bai Zijing's junior sister. What? Bai Zijing's junior sister. Hearing this, everyone was in an uproar. Bai Zijing was very terrifying. His junior sister should be pretty good too. On the other side, Chong Lu also asked in a deep voice, what? You want to stand up for your senior brother? In that case, don't blame me for being ruthless. The woman in red, Zhou Jianying, said indifferently, if you have any means, just use them. However, I only need 3 moves to deal with you. What? 3 moves? Hearing this, everyone was stunned. They couldn't believe their ears. Everyone had seen Chong Lu's earth physique. Even a powerful swordsman like Beichen couldn't break through his defense. One could imagine how terrifying the earth physique was. But now, this woman in red who had just appeared in front of them actually said that she would finish him off in 3 moves. This was simply a fantasy. For a moment, even the older generation figures and the surrounding geniuses frowned. Could it be that this woman in red has something to rely on, or a unique move? After Chong Lu heard this, he laughed out loud. Finish me off with a move. You're quite arrogant. However, you're underestimating my earth physique too much. You won't succeed. It's useless to say more. Make your move. On the other side, the woman in red, Zhou Jianying, was unwilling to say anything. Her jade-like hands gripped the long sword at her waist. It was a red longsword. It was very thin, only 2 fingers wide. Mysterious runes were drawn on the blade of the sword. Beauty, just make your move. I won't dodge. Chong Lu laughed. He was very confident in his earth physique. Buzz. As soon as he said that, a red sword shadow quickly flashed in the void. Clang. Immediately after, a deafening sound rang out. Then, everyone's ears went numb, and their faces turned pale. They quickly sealed their hearing, and all of them looked terrified. What happened? They were all stunned because the sword light was simply too fast. In the next moment, the surrounding geniuses and older generation experts all frowned. His expression was extremely solemn. Earlier, they had thought that the red-clothed woman was boasting. But now, it would appear that she was definitely not boasting. That sword strike just now made them feel a sense of fear and trepidation. They didn't catch the sword shadow at all. Demon Lord's complexion changed greatly. To be honest, he did not have an advantage in terms of speed. In fact, he was at a disadvantage. Because he was using a heavy sword, his speed was ordinary. Only when he used some unique skills could he increase his speed. Under normal circumstances, his speed was not fast. However, he was not afraid of fast opponents because his defense was strong. If his opponent could not penetrate it, it would be useless no matter how fast they were. But this time, he was truly stunned. That was because his opponent's speed was simply too fast. It was so fast that he couldn't even react in time. Fortunately, he possessed the Earth Constitution. Thus, he was currently wearing a layer of Earth armor. When the sword slashed onto the Earth armor, it emitted an incomparably sonorous sound. Damn it! How could this be? Then, Demon Lord exclaimed. That was because a crack had appeared on the Earth armor he was wearing. From the looks of it, it was a full 1/3. What? The Earth armor was split open? Hearing this news, everyone was even more shocked. This was even more shocking than not being able to catch the other party's sword shadow. That was because the other party's speed was fast. If his attack power was not good enough, he would not be able to catch it at all. But now, it seemed that not only was the other party fast, but his attack power was also terrifying. One sword strike was enough to split open the Earth armor. The second sword strike. Just as everyone was in a daze, the red-clothed woman, Zhou Jianying, spoke again. Then, another earth-shattering sound was heard. This time, they still did not see how the other party attacked. They did not see how the sword light appeared. They only heard Demon Lord scream. His eyes were wide open, and he looked as if he had seen a ghost. That was because the earth armor on his body had been completely split open. A vacuum was revealed. How is this possible? How is this possible? Isn't the other party's attack power too strong? 2 sword strikes and the earth armor was split open? This made Demon Lord's hair stand on end. The earth armor was not a treasure. It was a kind of magical ability that extended from his earth constitution and bloodline power. Normally, even a mighty figure would not be able to break it open. But now, it was split open by 2 sword strikes. Everyone swallowed their saliva. The red-clothed woman in front of them was several times stronger than the blue-clothed man from before. However, at this moment, the nightmarish voice sounded again. The third sword strike. Damn it! Demon Lord roared angrily. Speed was not his strong suit, so he could not dodge at all. He could only take the other party's sword strike head-on. In the next moment, he changed his angle, so that the earth armor that was not split open faced the sword light. At the same time, he activated the defensive inner armor on his body to quickly resist. Bang! In the next moment, he screamed and was sent flying backward. His huge body directly tore through the void. It was useless. Everything was useless. Even if he changed his angle, the other party's sword chi still accurately entered the armor that was split open. Then, the inner armor on Demon Lord's body was also split open. Fortunately, he had the Earth Constitution. Otherwise, this sword strike would have directly split him into two halves. But even so, he was still injured. Blood dripped from the corner of his mouth into the void. You've lost. In front, the red-clothed woman, Zhou Jinying, slowly withdrew her sword and said coldly. The surroundings were quiet. No one spoke. This was because everyone was stunned. The million cultivators were completely stunned by these three sword strikes. What kind of three sword strikes were these? They couldn't describe it at all. At this moment, they felt a surge of emotion. At the same time, there was a deep chill in their hearts because they realized that even if they faced these three sword strikes, they wouldn't be able to resolve it at all. Other than resisting it head-on, they couldn't think of any other way. But it was useless to resist it head-on. Even Demon Lord, who had the Earth Constitution, couldn't resist it, let alone them. In the distance, Demon Lord struggled to stand up from the void. He covered his wound with a pale face. He wanted to fight again, but his body didn't allow him to fight anymore, because he spat out another mouthful of blood. He was very unwilling. He came this time to challenge Bai Zijing, but now, Bai Zijing didn't make a move at all. Just a junior sister of the other party had seriously injured him. This made him extremely unwilling. At the same time, there was a strong fear in his heart. His junior sister was already so powerful. What kind of terrifying level had Bai Zijing reached? Chapter 2028. Unexpectedly, Bai Zijing did not make a move at all. Just a junior sister of the other party had severely injured him. This made him extremely indignant. At the same time, there was a strong sense of horror in his heart. His junior sister was already so powerful. What terrifying level had Bai Zijing reached? For a moment, everyone fell silent. What a fast sword! At this moment, a figure exclaimed from the distant horizon. This figure was a young man wearing a red robe and had a handsome face. It was Lin Xian, who had rushed all the way to Mount Hua. He had just arrived near Mount Hua when he saw Zhou Jinying's three sword moves and immediately exclaimed. Because these three sword moves were too fast, even he was a little shocked. Could this be the strength of that Bai Zijing? He is indeed very strong. No wonder he is so famous, Lin Xian thought to himself. The next moment, a golden light appeared in his eyes as he looked forward. However, he soon frowned and even exclaimed softly. This was because he discovered that the one who attacked was not the legendary Bai Zijing, but a woman in red. Moreover, he was somewhat familiar with this woman in red. After thinking for a while, he remembered that he knew this woman in red. Zhou Jinying, why is she here? Lin Xian was surprised. This woman in red was none other than Lin Xian. Back in the Tianan region, when the younger generation of the Azure Dragon Association was competing, Lin Xian had seen her before. Moreover, they had exchanged blows. At that time, Zhou Jinying was one of the four great geniuses of the Tianan region, and her sword intent was very sharp. However, he did not expect her to appear here now. Furthermore, from the looks of it, the other party's strength had undergone an earth-shattering change. Meeting an old friend here made Lin Xian very emotional. It seems that I'm not the only one who had a fortuitous encounter. This Zhou Jinying definitely had a great fortuitous encounter. Lin Xian muttered to himself in a low voice. Indeed, if not for a fortuitous encounter, how could she have come to the middle ground from the small island Nantian region? Moreover, her strength had become extremely strong. As for what kind of fortuitous encounter she had, Lin Xian did not care. What he cared about now was the other party's strength, and which one was Bai Zijing. It was because Bai Zi was actually his opponent this time. Originally, Lin Xian thought that this was just a battle between the two of them. He did not expect Bai Zijing to create such a grand spectacle. If he wanted to challenge everyone on Mount Hua, it would not be his business. Therefore, Lin Xian was not in a hurry to make a move. Instead, he quickly joined the crowd and watched silently. Lin Xian's arrival did not attract much attention. He was not famous in the Tai dynasty. Moreover, he was only a 6-star king right now. This kind of cultivation was not outstanding among the millions of martial artists. There were quite a few mighty figures around. Apart from that, there were also peerless geniuses and powerful elders. Thus, no one paid any attention to a mere 6-star king. At this moment, their gazes were all on the red-clothed woman, Zhou Jinying, in front of them. Who else wants to challenge me? Feel free to step forward. At the front, Zhou Jinying coldly spoke. Her voice clearly rang out in everyone's ears. If there's no one, you'll have to respect my senior brother Bai Zijing as the #1 swordsman of the younger generation. Hearing this, the millions of martial artists were enraged. The #1 swordsman was an unparalleled honor, because there could only be one #1 in the younger generation. However, at this moment, a loud laugh came from afar. The #1 swordsman of the younger generation? What an arrogant tone. But I'd like to see if he's qualified or not. Hearing this voice, the red-clothed woman, Zhou Jinying, raised her eyebrows and looked into the distance. The millions of martial artists in the surroundings also turned their heads. In the distance, a figure walked over quickly like a fleeting shadow. At first, he was still on the horizon, but in an instant, he arrived in front of the crowd. What a fast movement technique! Everyone was shocked. Just by looking at the speed of the movement technique, they knew that the person who came was definitely not an ordinary person. Lin Xian was in the crowd. He also narrowed his eyes and looked forward. The person who came was a young man with an evil charm. He was dressed in black and had a handsome face. However, there was an evil aura around him. As soon as he appeared, he looked at Bai Zijing and said coldly, "If you want to become the #1 swordsman of the younger generation, you'll have to ask if I, Shangguan Qi, agree to it." Shangguan Qi, he's evil sword Shangguan Qi. The surrounding martial artists exclaimed. They did not expect him to come too. Evil sword Shangguan Qi, the top swordsman of the younger generation. His reputation was comparable to Bai Zijing's. However, Bai Zijing was the first prince's man, while Shangguan Qi was the third prince's man. They did not expect him to finally come. Things were getting interesting. The experts sent by the third prince were here. The 8th prince and the other princes would probably send their experts here too. This time, it would be impossible for Bai Zijing to succeed if he wanted to challenge everyone. Yes, putting the others aside, Shangguan Qi alone is extremely terrifying. I wonder if Bai Zijing can defeat him? The surrounding martial artists discussed animatedly. The seniors and supreme talents also looked solemn. They knew that an expert had finally made a move. However, the red-clothed woman, Zhou Jinying, smiled and stared at Shangguan Qi. Your evil sword Shangguan Qi? Great. I wanted to look for you. If I defeat you, I should be able to become famous. Facing Shangguan Qi, Zhou Jinying was not afraid at all. Instead, she was excited. She felt that the sword aura in her body was surging rapidly. However, Shangguan Qi smiled evilly and said, "Girl, you're quite powerful, but you don't stand a chance against me. Let your senior brother make a move. We'll know if I have a chance after we try." Zhou Jinying snorted coldly. In the next moment, her jade-like palm grabbed the red sword at her waist again. Buzz. Another sonorous sound was heard. Then, a fine sword radiance flashed across the sky. This sword was so fast that the crowd could not catch it. Clang. However, Shangguan Qi was not afraid of such a fast sword at all. He drew out a gray long sword and blocked it in front of him. Suddenly, the sound of metal colliding was heard. It was extremely terrifying. Shangguan Qi blocked the lightning-like sword aura calmly. He blocked it. The surrounding martial artists cheered excitedly when they saw this scene. That was because the red-clothed woman's fast sword had given them too much pressure. In fact, they could not think of anyone who could block it. However, the moment Shang Guanqi appeared, he blocked it easily. This made everyone very excited. As expected of Shang Guanqi, he lived up to his reputation. His reputation was not inferior to Bai Zijing's. The surrounding martial artists were excited. The red-clothed woman, Zhou Jianying, also frowned. This was the first time someone could block her sword. It seemed that this was a terrifying enemy. Chapter 2029. However, it was impossible to defeat her. Soon, Zhou Jianying would use her second and third sword. The terrifying sword light turned into continuous lightning, quickly slashing forward. However, the evil young man opposite her, Shang Guanqi, dealt with it calmly. The gray longsword in his hand also turned into a dazzling sword screen, blocking Zhou Jianying's attack. Both of them were very fast, and all kinds of sparks could be heard from time to time in the sky. Everyone was dazzled. Only the older generation experts and peerless geniuses could still keep up with their movements. The others couldn't see them at all. They could only see blurry afterimages. As expected of Shang Guanqi, he was indeed incomparably terrifying. Even a strong physique like the thick earth physique couldn't defend against the sword technique, but he was completely fine. Great. I think Shang Guanqi will definitely win. Don't let your guard down. That woman in red is also very terrifying. She's not famous at all, but she's actually able to tie with Shang Guanqi. Don't you think it's too terrifying? Moreover, she's only Bai Zijing's junior sister. Do you think the two of them will win? Everyone was discussing. However, at this moment, Lin Xian said indifferently, although both of them are very strong, it seems that Shang Guanqi will be able to win. Hearing this, some people nodded, while others disagreed. Someone asked again, how many moves will it take to win? It seems that it will take at least 100 moves. Lin Xian voiced his guess. Hearing this, the others sneered and shook their heads. What a joke, 100 moves. Why would there be a need for so many moves in a battle between experts? I think 30 to 50 moves should be enough. It definitely won't exceed 30 moves. This kid is obviously talking nonsense. He's just an ordinary 6-star king. What can he know? He probably can't even see the speed of the two of them. Feeling the aura emitted by Lin Xian, everyone shook their heads. In their opinion, Lin Xian was just a person with good talent, but in front of so many geniuses, he was simply not enough. For a moment, no one believed Li Xian's words. The battle between the two was very intense. In the blink of an eye, dozens of moves had passed. However, at that moment, Zhou Jianying started to frown. She discovered that her opponent was truly very powerful. Furthermore, he was so powerful that it surpassed her expectations. One must know that she was very confident in her sword technique. Other than her senior brother Bai Zijing, she had never been afraid of anyone in the younger generation. But now, her opponent's swordsmanship was so sharp that it could block her attack. Even the terrifying defense of the thick earth physique couldn't block it, but the other party actually blocked it. Wong. At this moment, Zhou Jianying shouted and raised the red sword in her hand. On the body of the sword, a bright light blossomed. Red runes flashed rapidly and connected together. For a moment, more than half of the space was enveloped by this red light. Terrifying sword runes flickered in the void, emitting a mysterious aura. Feeling this aura, the expressions of the surrounding martial artists changed. Some of them even cried out in alarm. Look, the other party is about to use his ultimate move. Blazing Red Rock Slash. At this moment, Zhou Jianying used her ultimate move. With the red sword as the center, the entire space around it was covered with a layer of red runes. A terrifying murderous aura appeared in the void, shaking the void. Then, as the sword slashed down, the runes in the sky trembled rapidly. Ha 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 ha. Take my evil god sword technique. On the other side, Shang Guanqi wasn't afraid at all. He laughed loudly. Immediately, the sword light in his body soared into the sky. A few terrifying sword chi enveloped him, forming a powerful battle suit. Not only that, but there were also streaks of gray sword chi revolving around him. He seemed to have turned into a god of death. He was abnormally sharp. Clang, 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 clang. The red sword light and the red sword runes in the sky collided with the gray sword chi, letting out thunderous sounds. The entire void was torn apart in an instant. Countless spatial cracks appeared. Boom. Then, the two sides collided intensely, and a terrifying force surged into the distance. Suddenly, a terrifying hole was torn in the sky. A huge black hole appeared and spun rapidly, completely engulfing a mountain. Seeing this scene, everyone's scalp went numb. They swallowed their saliva and quickly retreated. That was because this attack was simply too terrifying. If they were hit by these attacks, they wouldn't be able to resist at all. These two people were too heaven-defying. Although they hadn't reached the level of a mighty figure, their combat strength had already surpassed that of an ordinary mighty figure. A peerless genius. This was a true peerless genius. The surrounding people discussed animatedly. They clenched their fists in excitement. In the distance, Bai Zijing stood with his hands behind his back, watching quietly. Meanwhile, the man in blue, Bei Chun, frowned, because he was very clear about Zhou Jianying's strength. Other than Bai Zijing, not many people could contend against her. But now, Shang Guanqi could actually contend against her. Moreover, he could even withstand Zhou Jianying's ultimate move. It really surprised him. In front, the two of them fought even more intensely. Every time they collided, it was astonishing. However, at this moment, Shang Guanqi snorted coldly. Gray sword qi emitted from his body. They quickly intertwined, forming a terrifying domain that instantly enveloped the world. Oh no, Shang Guanqi has unleashed his king domain. It's already been more than 90 moves. Is the outcome about to be decided? On the opposite side, Zhou Jianying also snorted coldly. The red sword light behind her soared into the sky as she also unleashed her own domain. The two domains kept colliding in the air. In the blink of an eye, more than 10 moves had passed. They had actually exchanged more than 100 moves. Everyone exclaimed in disbelief. Originally, they thought that the outcome would be decided in 30 moves. They didn't expect that it would take more than 100 moves. Lin Xian narrowed his eyes. This scene was similar to what he had expected. Next, it was time for Shang Guanqi to use his ultimate move. Thinking about it, the battle should be over soon. Sure enough, at this moment, Shang Guanqi floated in his own domain and laughed loudly. His black hair had actually turned gray at this moment, and it even carried an aura of death. Sword of the evil god. His handsome face became abnormally evil. Then, Shang Guanqi swung his sword forcefully. Buzz. The sword slashed out, revealing its sharpness. The sky seemed to have been cut in half. An incomparably evil aura was emitted from the sword light, causing the surrounding people to tremble. Oh no! Feeling the sword chi, Zhou Jianying's face also changed. That was because he realized that the sword chi was not only fast and powerful, but it could also affect one's soul. The sword chi actually contained a soul power-killing move. Zhou Jianying was shocked. No wonder it was called the evil sword. It was indeed evil. She didn't dare to be careless and quickly defended herself. Chapter 2030. A set of red armor covered her body. At the same time, she opened her mouth and spat out a curtain of swords, forming a Milky Way defense in front of her. Bang! Zhou Jianying was shaken by this tremendous power until she kept retreating backwards. Her delicate jade-like feet stomped on the void, creating one black hole after another. Seeing this, the crowd heaved a sigh of relief. Although Zhou Jianying was pushed back, she did not suffer any serious injuries. She was only lightly injured. At this rate, she would not be defeated. But soon, they cried out in surprise. That was because after Shang Guanqi succeeded in his attack, he did not stop. Instead, he attacked even more fiercely. Evil Sword Blade. Shang Guanqi waved his long sword again. Suddenly, an even more terrifying gray sword chi slashed forward like a crescent moon. Damn it! Block it! Seeing that Shang Guanqi was attacking her again, Zhou Jianying roared. The red long sword in her hand seemed to have turned into a ball of terrifying fire. The red light in the sky quickly shot up into the sky and formed a huge storm. It wanted to burn the gray sword chi. However, the gray sword chi was too terrifying. It extinguished the flames in the sky and slashed on Zhou Jinying's long sword. Suddenly, an earth-shattering sound was heard. Zhou Jinying's arm went numb, and she was pushed back again. Evil Sword Soul. Seeing that his opponent was pushed back again, Shang Wanqi laughed and attacked even more fiercely. His body was surrounded by gray sword chi. He was like a god of death floating in the void. The king's domain around him surged rapidly along with his arm. Boom, boom, boom. In the sky, a huge gray sword chi slashed out and formed a demonic beast. It bared its fangs and claws like a huge dragon or a qilin. It tore the void apart and charged toward Zhou Jianying. Red Lotus Sword Chi Protection. Seeing this terrifying attack, Zhou Jianying did not dare to be careless. Her long sword suddenly exploded and turned into a red lotus, instantly enveloping her. Clang! The gray sword chi was too terrifying. It split the red lotus shadow and slashed on Zhou Jianying's body. Puff! Zhou Jianying flew out and crashed into a few mountains. Her delicate body trembled in the void. Not only that, she spat out a few mouthfuls of blood. Her face was extremely pale. Defeated. He was actually defeated. She didn't expect that other than by Zijing, there would be someone who could defeat her. This really surprised her. The surrounding people were also stunned. The older generation experts and peerless experts were all frowning. Even Bai Zijing revealed an astonished expression for the first time. He squinted his eyes and stared coldly at Shang Wanqi, who was standing in front of him. Bai Zijing finally met an interesting opponent. He revealed a smile. He felt a little excited because these days, no one was a match for him. No one could contend against him. Geniuses were lonely. It was lonely at the top. When one reached a certain height, the feeling of not having an opponent was simply too unbearable. And now, he had finally found someone who could be his opponent. Therefore, Bai Zijing was very excited. Beside him, the blue-clothed youth, Bei Chun, sucked in a deep breath. This fellow is so strong. He was probably the strongest person in the younger generation aside from Bai Zijing. In the crowd, Lin Xian also nodded slightly. Indeed, this Shang Wanqi was very strong. Even he had to be careful when dealing with him. As expected of Zhongzhou, just the Tai dynasty alone had such powerful young geniuses. Looking at the strength of these people, they were definitely not weaker than the saints of the East. Now that they had reached their level, the meaning of the younger generation was different from that of ordinary people. Those below 300 years old were all called the younger generation. Lin Xian didn't know the real age of these geniuses, but there was no doubt about it. These people were the ones who had the most hope of becoming higher beings in the shortest amount of time and obtaining great battle prowess. Lin Xian was calm, but in other places, the geniuses had lingering fear. Damn, these people are too strong. I originally thought that the gap between us wasn't big, but now it seems that it wasn't the case at all. That's right. Fortunately, I didn't make a move. Otherwise, I would have been embarrassed. These were true peerless geniuses, far surpassing other ordinary geniuses. The older generation figures were also amazed. At this moment, Bai Zijing finally moved. He slowly stood up, looked forward, and said coldly, "You are qualified to be my opponent. Is that so? But I don't want to fight with you now." The evil-looking young man, Shang Wanqi, shook his head. He had his own plans. Although he was strong, Bai Zijing was also very strong. He was definitely not weaker than him, and he had just finished a great battle with Zhou Jianying and had already exhausted a lot of his strength. He had to recover now and reach his peak before he could fight with Bai Zijing with all his strength. Otherwise, if he was not in the right state, he might be defeated. Therefore, he definitely wouldn't fight with Bai Zijing immediately. "Let me do it, Bai Zijing. I'll fight you." Another tall and straight figure walked out from the crowd. This was also a handsome young man. He was Li Mingbai, who had explained to everyone previously. Li Mingbai was also an A-list genius, far surpassing the other geniuses. He was very powerful. Therefore, when he came out, everyone also exclaimed in surprise. each and every one of them exclaiming in satisfaction. Because now, 4 or 5 peerless geniuses had already appeared. Each of them made them look up to them, excited them, and made their blood boil. However, Bai Zijing furrowed his brows. He said, "I remember that we seemed to have fought a year ago. At that time, you weren't my match." Hearing this, everyone was in an uproar. They didn't expect that the two of them had actually fought before. Li Mingbai said in a deep voice, "Indeed, I wasn't your match a year ago. But in the past year, my improvement is definitely not what you can imagine. Therefore, I am completely qualified to fight with you now." Speaking of this, a powerful sword aura suddenly erupted from Li Mengbai's body. Streaks of sword light were like long dragons, spinning rapidly. Immediately, everyone felt an extremely terrifying pressure. Although Li Mingbai was defeated a year ago, no one dared to underestimate him, because the aura he was emitting now shocked these millions of cultivators. A defeated opponent wasn't qualified to challenge Brother Bai. Beichun, the young man in blue, stood out. He pulled out the Big Dipper sword in his hand. "Why don't I play with you first?" "Okay." Li Mingbai nodded and didn't refuse. He knew that if he didn't show off his powerful combat power, Bai Zijing wouldn't fight with him. So at the next moment, he made an inviting gesture. Big Dipper connecting the heavens. Beichun used a powerful killing move the moment he attacked. The Big Dipper sword in his hand released a terrifying aura. Suddenly, 7 huge stars appeared in the sky. Together, they formed a terrifying sword light that slashed downwards. In an instant, it enveloped Li Mingbai. Chapter 2031. 7 huge stars revolved in the sky, and the terrifying starlight turned the entire void into night. The power of the stars in the sky swept out crazily, completely enveloping Li Mingbai. Li Mingbai stood in the void with a solemn expression, and his body emitted sharp sword light. Facing the terrifying killing intent of the stars, he strode forward like a king. Buzz! He pulled out his silver-white longsword and slashed out horizontally. Instantly, the illusory stars were destroyed one after another. "What? He's actually so strong." Beichun was shocked. Seeing that his killer move had been destroyed so easily, he was extremely shocked. Because a year ago, when the other party fought with Bai Zijing, he was also there. At that time, the other party's strength was on par with his. But now, after just a year, the other party could easily destroy his killer move. This meant that the other party's strength had completely surpassed his. Damn it, how much did this guy grow in strength in a year? They were all geniuses and had similar resources. Logically speaking, the increase in combat power should be about the same. But now, it seemed that this was far from the case. The other party's increase in combat power far surpassed his. Therefore, this surprised Beichun. No wonder the other party had the confidence to challenge Bai Zijing again. Bai Zijing also narrowed his eyes, slightly surprised. "No wonder, your strength has indeed increased a lot. It seems that you're not weaker than junior sister Zhou. Since that's the case, you're qualified for me to make a move." "What? Bai Zijing is going to make a move?" Seeing this scene, everyone was abnormally excited. They didn't expect that after waiting for so long, Bai Zijing was finally going to make a move. On the opposite side, Li Mingbai also clenched the silver long sword in his hand tightly. "This time, I won't lose to you easily. Make your move." However, Bai Zijing was very calm. His black hair fluttered, and his handsome face was extremely calm. His slender body exuded an extremely sharp aura. "Come, let me see how much you've improved in the past year." "You'll see," Li Mingbai said coldly, and then he made his move. A silver-white sword light lit up, and then the world lost its color. The surrounding wind blew, and even many mountain peaks were directly cut in half. Everyone exclaimed and retreated continuously, their eyes filled with intense shock. They thought that Li Mingbai was very strong, but they didn't expect that they had still underestimated him. This sword was even stronger than before. Wang. On the other side, Bai Zijing also frowned. He had not expected that the other party had hidden his strength. So in the next moment, he drew his sword. His speed was very fast, even faster than the red-clothed woman, Zhou Jianying. No one could see the trajectory of his attack. They could only see a ray of light flashing through the void, followed by a shocking sound. The surrounding gale and silver-white sword light were instantly split in half. What a terrifying sword art! Seeing this scene, those exceptional experts and people of the older generation felt their scalps go numb. Li Mengbai's expression was also extremely solemn. He naturally knew how powerful and terrifying the other party was. Therefore, he did not think that he would be able to succeed in one go. However, the fact that his opponent was able to easily cut through his attack still surprised him greatly. It seemed like he wasn't the only one who had improved. The other party's improvement in the past year was also frightening. White Dragon Pierce. Li Mengbai did not dare to be careless and hurriedly used her ultimate move. Boom, boom. Above the long sword, a white dragon shadow appeared, roaring in the void. As soon as it appeared, it shattered the surrounding void, forming a powerful and terrifying power that directly charged toward Bai Zijing. The million cultivators were shocked. They did not expect such a terrifying killing move to appear right after they exchanged blows. It was truly shocking. Facing the white dragon sword shadow, Bai Zijing also nodded slightly. Not bad. Your combat strength has indeed improved greatly. However, your speed is not fast enough. You can't hurt me at all. This is not fast enough? The geniuses in the crowd were dumbfounded. This attack was already very terrifying, and they had no confidence in taking it on. However, Bai Zijing actually said that his speed was not fast enough. It was really despairing. Buzz. At the next moment, Bai Zijing took a step forward, and 10,000 rays of light flashed on his body. Then, 10,000 phantoms appeared, and each of them was exactly the same as him. They filled the void, making it impossible to distinguish between the real and the fake. Myriad mirror movement technique. This Bai Zijing had actually cultivated this movement technique to such a profound level. Some people of the older generation exclaimed. This was a terrifying movement technique that could instantly create 10,000 clones. Each of them seemed real, making it impossible to distinguish between the real and the fake. However, there was only one real body, and it was hidden among the 10,000 clones. Only by finding it would they be able to destroy the clones. Since I can't find it, I'll destroy all of them. Li Mengbai took a step forward, and the aura on his body also changed. He was no longer calm and composed. Instead, he seemed to be filled with killing intent. His hair danced wildly in satisfaction. Behind him, a silver-white sword light quickly interweaved, forming a terrifying domain. It soared into the sky like a wave. These sword lights blotted out the sky and covered the earth. They emitted an astonishing killing intent that enveloped those clones. Boom, boom, clang. The clones that filled the sky were pierced by the sharp swords and quickly disappeared. Those clones became fewer and fewer, from tens of thousands to only a few hundred in the end. However, Li Mengbai's expression was grave. At the next moment, he frowned, and his expression changed drastically as he quickly retreated to the side. That was because he felt a biting cold killing intent coming from behind him. Poof! However, he was still a step too late. Behind him, a dazzling sword light turned into a long rainbow, instantly enveloping him. Damn it! His real body is actually here. When did he come over? Li Mengbai was extremely shocked. He did not expect Bai Zijing to secretly come to his side and even emit such a terrifying sword aura. He could not dodge it. The other party's speed was too fast, even faster than Zhou Jianying. With Li Mengbai's current speed, there was no way he could dodge it. Boom. So at the next moment, he activated the ring in his hand. That ring was extremely black, and it was worn on his middle finger. Everyone originally thought that it was a storage ring, but from the looks of it now, it was not at all. That was because the black ring suddenly emitted a monstrous black light, and then a huge pressure was emitted. Immediately after, a black tortoise phantom appeared, completely enveloping Li Mengbai. Clang! Bai Zijing's sword aura slashed the black tortoise, emitting a deafening sound. Countless cracks were torn in the void, and the black tortoise phantom also instantly dimmed. However, it did not shatter. Li Mingbai was also forced back a few thousand meters. A trace of blood flowed out from the corner of his mouth, and a strand of hair also floated down. Dangerous. It was really too dangerous. If he did not have the black tortoise ring as a powerful defense, that sword strike would have seriously injured him. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.